Chapter 448. Fellow Taoist, I'm really sorry. It's my fault for not disciplining him well. As a result, Hui broke the rules and offended you. I hope you can forgive him. Not long after Ao Shui left, Dijiang, who had not appeared for a long time, finally came. As soon as he appeared, he did not give Feng Zichen a chance to blame him and directly apologized. It could be said that he had given Feng Zichen enough face. This attitude made it difficult for Feng Zichen to blame him. He could only keep the words that he had prepared in advance to blame him in his heart. Dijiang was also smart. He knew that Hui would definitely deeply anger him if he came to snatch Feng Zichen's fiancée. Then, even if he went, Feng Zichen, who was in a towering rage, would probably not give him face and release Hui. Since that was the case, he might as well not go. It would not be too late to go after Feng Zichen's anger subsided. Anyway, he would not kill Hui. It was only right to let Hui suffer a little, and let Feng Zichen vent his anger. To be honest, when what Hui had done was spread back to the wizard tribe, Dijiang's face turned green with anger. He could not figure out how Hui would dare to go to the human race to snatch a marriage, and Feng Zichen's marriage. Did he really not take Feng Zichen seriously? He was a wizard, a teacher that Pangu had personally conferred and recognized by the wizard tribe. If Hui was not a Khanate wizard with a noble status second only to the ancestral wizard, Dijiang would really want to slap him to death. Fellow Taoist, where is Hui now? He dares to offend you like this. I will definitely punish him severely. After exchanging pleasantries with Feng Zichen for a while, Dijiang finally told him the purpose of his visit. He wanted to take Hui away. What he meant was, fellow Taoist, it's been so long. You've punished him and your anger should have subsided. Shouldn't you let him go? Even if your anger hasn't subsided, I'll take him back and punish him well. It'll be considered as appeasing you. It was not appropriate to keep suppressing the human race. Tao brother, you're exaggerating. I already know the reason this time. Hui was also schemed against by others. He really can't be blamed. Feng Zichen did not want to ruin his relationship with the witch tribe over such a small matter. Since Dijiang gave him face, he took the opportunity to cover up this matter. However, the matter of Hui being schemed against by Dijun still had to be told to him. A scheme? What's going on? Hearing this, Dijiang could no longer sit still. He had long felt that there was something wrong with the matter caused by Hui. Hui was not a fool. How could he do such a brainless thing? There was clearly a problem. Taoist brother, please take a look. Feng Zichen smiled and didn't say anything. He projected Hui's current situation in front of Dijiang for him to see. At this moment, Hui was exactly the same as when he was first suppressed. There was no change at all. His eyes were scarlet and his face was filled with madness. He wanted to devour someone. The time and space that belonged to him had been completely suppressed by the human Tao Imperial Court. As long as Feng Zichen did not remove the seal, Hui would remain in his current state until the immeasurable calamity arrived. However, Dijiang's attention was clearly not on the power of the human Tao Imperial Court. Instead, it was focused on Hui's scarlet eyes. That red was abnormally bright. The aura of lust inside circulated endlessly, evolving into all kinds of scenes of love between a man and a woman. It was so mesmerizing that one could not extricate themselves from it and completely sink into it. Love tribulation. Dijiang's pupils constricted as he cried out involuntarily. Hui's current state was clearly that of someone who had fallen deeply into the love tribulation and could not extricate himself. The word love was the most hurtful. Primordial chaos was unharmed, but love hurt oneself. This was the injury that he had caused to himself. It was a wound on the great Tao, a wound on his Tao heart. It was the most serious and difficult to heal. The demons are really good. In a flash, Dijiang figured out the cause and effect. This was definitely done by the demons. This was because in the current world, only Nuwa and the demons who controlled Zhoxing could lure Daoyuo Jingxian into the love tribulation. Feng Zichen was Nuwa's face outside. Nuwa would definitely not scheme against him like this. The mastermind behind this matter was obvious. It was the demons. They had enough motives. Fellow Taoist, can Hui be saved? After a moment, Dijiang asked Feng Zichen in a deep voice. He was deeply immersed in the love tribulation, and his Tao heart had sunk. He really could not think of a way to save Hou-yi. He could only place his hopes on Feng Zichen. After all, Feng Zichen's wisdom was obvious to all. This, Feng Zichen pondered for a moment and said, if it's just the origin of the moon, after a period of time, my understanding of the path of innate yin and yang will improve. I will be able to remove the origin of the moon in Hou-yi's body and treat his injuries. However, the love tribulation on his body is more difficult to deal with. If it's an ordinary love tribulation, I might be able to sever his relationship by using the method of entering the Tao in dreams. However, Dijun had calculated everything and did not give outsiders a chance to help Hou-yi. I can't do it. Shaking his head, Feng Zichen sighed. Hou-yi was crippled. With Dijun's strength, even if the Magi used all their strength, they would not be able to protect Hou-yi. It would be easy to kill him. However, Dijun did not want to. He wanted to torture Hou-yi and make him suffer a fate worse than death to vent the hatred in his heart. However, this also meant that the battle of the Magi was not far away. It was easy for Dijun to deal with Hou-yi, and it was also easy for Dijiang to deal with the demon god. In the past, both sides had their own scruples or because of their identities, so they would not attack the Daluo Jingxian of the two clans. But now, Dijun was the first to break the rules. He secretly attacked Hou-yi, a Khanate magus who had a chance of becoming a quasi-saint, and crippled him. Then Dijiang would not be polite. He would definitely attack the demon god who had a chance of becoming a quasi-saint. In the future, the Daluo Jingxian of the two clans would be in danger. At this time, both sides were already unscrupulous. It was just a matter of who could not help but launch the final battle. Is there really no other way? Dijiang was a little confused, as if he could not accept this result. Hou-yi was the top combat strength of the Magi. He alone could fight several figures at the level of the 10 great demon gods. Losing him would be a huge loss to the Magi. It's not that there's no other way. Why don't we put Hou-yi's true spirit into the reincarnation cycle, and let him experience 100 reincarnations? Maybe one of them can break through the love trial and return. After pondering for a moment, Feng Zichen suggested a solution that was not really a solution. This solution could be said to be half good and half bad. After 100 reincarnations, if Hou-yi could break through the love trial, not only would he recover from his injuries, but he would also be one step closer to becoming a quasi-saint. But if he could not break through, then it would be troublesome. He would probably sink forever until he was worn down by the reincarnation cycle. Golden immortals were immortal and indestructible, but the 6 paths of reincarnation disc was a chaos supreme treasure after all. Its might was immeasurable, and its profundity was beyond imagination. Perhaps it could really wear down a golden immortal. After all, the essence of the chaos treasure had far surpassed that of a saint. No one knew what it would be like when it was fully unleashed. Let's do as you said and put Hou-yi's true spirit into the reincarnation cycle. After thinking, Dijiang made up his mind. Hou-yi's appearance would be like sending himself to death if he participated in the battle between the Magi and the demons. It would be better to send him into the reincarnation cycle. No matter how bad it was, it couldn't be that bad. There's no time to lose. I'll bring Hou-yi to Huta now. Dijiang was also impatient. As soon as he made up his mind, he was about to take action. He reached out his hand and grabbed Hou-yi of the Human Tao Imperial Court. Rumble! The space-time sealed by the Human Tao Imperial Court shattered under Dijiang's huge hand. Hou-yi was caught in his hand just like that. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen's pupils couldn't help but shrink. He was even more shocked by Dijiang's strength. Even if the Human Tao Imperial Court had not fully recovered, it was still a Khanate treasure. Under its suppression, even a quasi-saint would not be able to escape easily. But Dijiang had rescued Hou-yi with just a slight shake, which was enough to show its strength. A casual attack could severely injure a quasi-saint. Half-origin. A proper half-step primordial chaos expert. Dijiang's current strength was definitely not inferior to Dijun's. It was the legendary half-origin realm, and was not far from achieving the Tao. And all of this, it was all brought about by the Tao of gods and demons. According to the normal course of history, although Dijiang was strong, He was only at the peak of the quasi-saint realm. He was far from being as strong as he was now. This made Feng Zichen very excited. The more he changed, the more changes there would be in the future of the primitive world. Anyone could seize the opportunity to transcend and not be manipulated by the heavenly Tao. Fellow Taoist, I can't attend your wedding. This is a congratulatory gift from the 12 ancestral shamans. I'll give it to you in advance. After rescuing Hou Yi, Di Jiang took out a jade box and handed it to Feng Zichen. Then he left. Hou Yi, whether this is a calamity or a fortuitous opportunity, it all depends on your own fortune. Looking in the direction Di Jiang left, Feng Zichen was a little silent. With Di Jiang gone, there would be no Wu Gang in the future. He didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse for Hou Yi. The wizard tribe has dominated the primitive world for many years. It can be said that they are very rich. The gift they sent must be extraordinary. At this time, Feng Zichen had time to look at the gift from the 12 ancestral shamans. In terms of wealth, Ancestor Hongjun deserved to be the first in the primitive world. The second was between the wizard tribe and the demon tribe. In the primitive world, there were endless fortunes and countless natural treasures. No one would believe that the wizard tribe was poor. Hey, it's the natural Taoist jade. The wizard tribe is really rich. It's just a gift box, but it's made with a whole piece of natural Taoist jade. How extravagant! The natural Taoist jade was a special jade formed by the natural Taoist connotation. It contained the mystery of the great way of heaven and earth. It could help people understand the heaven and earth. It could also be branded with the Taoist connotation of the heaven and earth. It could even be refined into an acquired supreme treasure. The value of this item was no less than a congenital magic treasure. It could even be said that it was no less than an ordinary congenital spirit treasure. Its preciousness could be imagined. The jade box in Feng Zichen's hand was made with a large piece of natural Taoist jade. It could be refined into a good acquired supreme treasure. If it was stored in the chaos bead for a few hours, it might become a congenital spirit treasure. However, it was precisely this sort of treasure that was used as a storage container. Thus, the treasures inside must be even more precious. Chapter 449. With this thought in mind, Feng Zichen could not wait to open the jade box. As this item was personally handed to Feng Zichen by Di Jiang, there were no restrictions on the jade box. Feng Zichen opened the jade box easily. There was no shocking phenomenon, nor was there any abnormal fluctuation. There were 12 pearls lying quietly in the jade box, blooming slightly. Khanate pearls. These 12 pearls were the Khanate pearls. They were born with the Khanate Tao, and their bodies were surrounded by Khanate Tao. They were extraordinary. Their attributes were different. There were metal, wood, water, fire, earth, time, space, wind, rain, lightning, and poison. They corresponded to the attributes of the 12 ancestral witches. Each of them was a middle-grade Khanate spiritual treasure. These were the Khanate spiritual treasures of the 12 ancestral witches. The Khanate spiritual pearls. The 12 ancestral witches were born holy, and could be called the sons of Pengu. When they were born, they naturally had Khanate spiritual treasures. This was a necessary benefit for Khanate godfiends. They had at least one Khanate spiritual treasure. Even if they were born without primordial spirits and could not use Khanate spiritual treasures, they were no exception. The Khanate spiritual pearls were the Khanate spiritual treasures formed when the 12 ancestral witches were born. The fragments of the chaos bead entangled with the origins of the 12 ancestral witches. It was the manifestation of their origins. Although its level was not high, it could help people comprehend the Tao and the Tao of the 12 ancestral witches. Good treasure. What a good treasure. Taking out the Khanate spiritual pearls, Feng Zichen's expression was slightly excited. Such a treasure was exactly what he lacked. Comprehending the Tao of the 12 ancestral witches was just a trivial matter to him. The fragments of the 12 chaos beads contained in it were the treasure that really moved him. When the Khanate spiritual pearls were combined, it would be a supreme-grade Khanate spiritual treasure. And swallowing a supreme-grade Khanate spiritual treasure, even if it was the chaos bead that had been promoted to a Khanate cardinal treasure, he would still gain a lot of benefits. Perhaps, an Khanate divine restriction would be born because of this. Come. Without hesitation, Feng Zichen directly took out the chaos bead and swallowed the Khanate spiritual pearls. Although supreme-grade Khanate spiritual treasures were precious, they were nothing compared to Khanate cardinal treasures. Losing a supreme-grade Khanate spiritual treasure would allow the might of the Khanate cardinal treasure to improve further. No matter how one looked at it, it would not be a loss. Feng Zichen naturally knew what to do. One had to know that while Khanate spirit treasures had 9 innate divine seals, each innate divine seal was a grade. Khanate treasures with 46 innate divine seals were known as inferior-grade Khanate cardinal treasures. A Khanate treasure with 47 innate divine seals was known as a mid-grade Khanate cardinal treasure. By analogy, a Khanate Dharma treasure with 49 Khanate divine seals was the strongest Dharma treasure that could be nurtured in the prehistoric era. A supreme-grade Khanate cardinal treasure. Anything that surpassed this limit would be the most powerful magic treasure known to man, the Chaos treasure. That was a treasure that could only be nurtured by the great Tao and the chaos outside the realm. The primordial world was far from being able to do that. The primal chaos bead was a Khanate cardinal treasure with 46 Khanate divine seals. It was classified as a lesser Khanate cardinal treasure. There was a huge gap between it and the 3 legendary Khanate cardinal treasures. Just like the Saint and Hongjun, they seemed to be in the same realm, but the gap between them was huge. They were far from comparable. But now, after devouring the 12 Khanate spiritual pearls, the primal chaos bead had been further repaired. It had developed another Khanate divine seal and become a mid-grade Khanate cardinal treasure. Although it was still incomparable to the 3 great Khanate cardinal treasures, its power had been greatly increased. In the future, when Feng Zichen found more fragments of the primal chaos bead for it to devour, it would definitely be able to compete with it. As a chaos treasure, the primal chaos bead might not be inferior to Panga's axe. Indeed, the primal chaos bead was shattered by Panga's axe, but that did not mean that the primal chaos bead was inferior to Panga's axe. That was because Panga's axe was in Panga's hands. It had almost invincible strength. With just one strike, it had shattered the primal chaos bead. But if Panga's axe was not in Panga's hands, would he still be able to shatter the primal chaos bead? It was Pangu who had made Panga's axe famous, not Panga's axe Pangu. Without Panga's axe, Pangu was still Pangu, invincible under the great Tao, the number 1 chaos fiend god. However, Panga's axe was one of the 3 chaos treasures. It might not be stronger than the other 2 chaos treasures. Therefore, Feng Zichen firmly believed that as long as he could upgrade the primal chaos bead to the level of a supreme-grade Khanate numinous treasure, the 3 chaos bead would become the most powerful Khanate numinous treasure. It would become the second most powerful numinous treasure in the primordial world, second only to the 6 paths of reincarnation disc. After all, the primal chaos bead was formed from the essence of the chaos bead. It was its foundation and had inherited all its abilities. As for the 3 chaos treasures, they were Khanate cardinal treasures formed from the chaos treasure Panga's axe's essence after it shattered. They each inherited a portion of its power, but they were far from being comparable to the real Panga's axe. In that case, the 3 chaos treasures were inferior to the primal chaos bead, and the chaos green lotus of the same grade. It could be seen from their names. Panga's banner, Taiji diagram, and primal chaos bead were no longer known as Panga's axe. As for the other 2 chaos treasures, although they were more thoroughly shattered, their names were still preserved. This meant that they had the possibility of reappearing, but Panga's axe did not. Boom, boom, boom. After devouring the 12 Khanate pearls, the primal chaos bead underwent a shocking change. Countless mysterious runes were born from the void, densely packed and endless. They interweaved inside the primal chaos bead, forming a new Khanate divine restriction. At this moment, the primal chaos bead was upgraded from an inferior-grade Khanate cardinal treasure to a middle-grade Khanate cardinal treasure. The Tao light on its body became deeper and darker, like a black hole that devoured all the light around it. It made one feel as if they would sink into it and be swallowed by the endless primal chaos, see with just a glance. And this was only the external change. Inside the primal chaos bead, an even more intense change was happening. In the center of the primal chaos, the ancient door, the space-time door, became larger and clearer. It exuded an ancient aura, even more ancient than heaven and earth, as if it existed with the primal chaos. Wisps of purplish-black airflow surged out of the ancient door and wandered around the primal chaos space. Wherever it passed, the surrounding primal chaos chi seemed to have met a king and retreated, expressing their submission. Domineering. Incomparably domineering. Even more domineering than the primal chaos chi. This was a power that was higher than the primal chaos chi. It was the product of the combination of the power of the great Tao and the primal chaos chi. It had a power that was closer to the Tao. Such power was born in the depths of the primal chaos, the place where the great Tao lived in seclusion. That was the most sacred place in the world. The power of the great Tao was so majestic, unimaginable, and unsurpassable. It was truly omnipotent. Where the great Tao was, the primal chaos chi bathed in its power all year round. Of course, it would undergo a shocking change and become the power that was closest to the Tao. After the primal chaos bead was upgraded, the ancient door of primal chaos also rose in power. Its power was greatly increased, and it actually opened a passage that led to the depths of the primal chaos bead, stealing the power of the great Tao from there. Although it was only a trace, and it was not the purest power of the great Tao, it was still an extremely incredible thing. That was the power of the great Tao. Even if it was only a trace, it could still bring great benefits to people. Moreover, the power of the great Tao stolen by the door of primal chaos was more than a trace. It could only steal a trace at a time, but it was stealing this power all the time. In the long run, it would definitely be able to steal a lot of power of the great Tao for Feng Zichen. Regardless of whether it was used for cultivation or refining treasures, this energy was extremely valuable. In fact, if there was enough of this power, it might even be able to refine the Hongmeng purple gas, or the origin of the great Tao. Of course, this required a lot of power. With the current speed of the door of primal chaos, it would not be enough even if it accumulated for hundreds of millions of years. However, the speed of the door of primal chaos stealing this power naturally would not remain unchanged. With the upgrade of the primal chaos bead, its power would definitely increase further. At that time it would steal even more power of the great Tao. Perhaps the power of the great Tao that it stole would be even purer and more advanced. It would not be like now, where other than a small part of the power of the great Tao, there was also a large amount of primal chaos chi mixed in. Good. With this power, my foundation will definitely be greatly improved. After putting away the primal chaos bead, Feng Zichen still could not hide the excitement in his heart. Such an unforeseen event was something that he had not expected. His original intention was only to increase the power of the primal chaos bead, so that he could better deal with the great calamity that would soon come. However, the outcome brought him a huge surprise. Feng Zichen did not need this item to increase his power. He was the great Taoist priest. As long as he cultivated step by step, he would be able to advance to the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian at the fastest speed. However, he could use this power to refine treasures and innate spirit treasures. The great Tao was omnipotent, so his power was naturally omnipotent. This power was higher than the primal chaos chi, and contained the mighty power of the great Tao. It had an incredible ability. If there were enough of it, it could even create things out of thin air and directly evolve into innate spirit treasures. Even if there were not enough of it, it could be supplemented by innate divine materials to refine innate spirit treasures. Innate divine materials were of the same origin as innate spirit treasures. Logically speaking, they should be able to refine innate spirit treasures. However, innate spirit treasures that were refined after birth had an additional trace of craftsmanship. It was far from being as natural as those that were born from the creation of heaven and earth. Just this trace of craftsmanship could distinguish between innate and innate spirit treasures. However, the mighty power of the great Tao could eliminate this trace of craftsmanship, making the Dharma treasures refined by humans no different from the Dharma treasures that were born from the creation of heaven and earth. With this, one could refine innate spirit treasures. Go. After thinking for a while, Feng Zichen threw the jade box made of innate Tao jade into the chaos bead, allowing it to absorb the mighty power of the great Tao to its heart's content. Although the mighty power of the great Tao was powerful, The mighty power of the great Tao that he obtained was obviously not pure. It still had some ability, so he had to test it out personally. He threw the jade box in because he wanted to see what stage the mighty power of the great Tao in the chaos bead could raise it to. If it was an innate spirit treasure, this power was worth paying attention to. If it was only an innate spirit treasure, then this power would be of little use. It was better to save it up. When there were more of it, he would calculate it. After doing all this, Feng Zichen put on the wedding robe that Niuhua had carefully prepared for him and strode out. After delaying for so long, the day of the wedding was right in front of him. It was time for him to go out and meet the guests. The auspicious time has arrived. Bow. In the ancestral temple of the human race, the ritual officer calculated the time and shouted loudly. Then Feng Zichen and Chang Yi bowed according to the instructions. First, they bowed respectfully to the heavens and earth to show the kindness of the heavens and earth. Then they bowed to Niuhua to thank Niuhua for her kindness of creating the human race. Finally, the two of them bowed to each other to show mutual respect. After the ceremony, the human path manifested. Golden clouds filled the world, turning into a bright golden glow that draped over the two of them, making them look exceptionally noble. This was the protection of the human path. From then on, the two of them were invincible. After the human path manifested a miracle, the heavenly path manifested as well. Above the sky, auspicious clouds gathered, auspicious chi fell, and boundless golden light appeared. That was the black-yellow merit. After the two of them finished the ceremony, it was a sign that they were married. The Xianhuang merit points naturally descended. Rumble. Vast amounts of merit fell from the 9 heavens. Although it was less than 1,000th of a sage's Tao, it could not be underestimated. With a whistling sound, it poured into the two of them. Feng Zichen was fine. He was powerful and not a quasi-sage, but he was better than a quasi-sage. The chi of merit that entered his body was completely inadequate and of little help to him. With a thought, Xiaochen put away the chi of virtue, saving it for his own use. But Chang'e was different. Her cultivation in her previous life had been sealed by someone. Now she had just entered the Tai Jingxian realm. When the chi of merit entered her body, before she could react, it all turned into cultivation and began to improve her realm. In an instant, Chang'e's realm began to soar rapidly. Middle Tai Jingxian, late Tai Jingxian. In a few breaths, she had improved to the perfected Tai Jingxian realm, and it was still improving rapidly. Boom. Finally, with a loud boom, Chang'e seemed to have broken some kind of boundary. She transcended from the river of destiny and came to the river of time and space. At this moment, she had become Daoyuo Jingxian. The merit of marriage directly raised Chang'e's realm from Tai Jingxian to Daoyuo Jingxian, becoming an expert of the primitive world in one fell swoop. Fortunately, although Chang'e's true spirit had been sealed, her essence would not change. She was still in the quasi-sage realm, a supreme expert who had begun to transcend the river of time and space. Now that she had become Daoyuo Jingxian again, it was just recovering her cultivation. It would not cause any damage to her foundation, nor would there be any drawbacks. It would not affect her combat strength. Directly using merit to improve one's cultivation might have undetectable drawbacks, but using merit to recover one's cultivation was completely harmless. If the human body was compared to a cup, increasing one's realm meant increasing the capacity of the cup to accommodate more power. Naturally, one had to be very careful and not make the slightest mistake. And recovering one's cultivation was like pouring water into a cup. One only needed to crazily absorb the energy of heaven and earth. This was much simpler, and there were not so many scruples. Black-yellow merit was a kind of energy of heaven and earth, and it was one of the highest powers. Chapter 450. Using it to recover one's cultivation was naturally beneficial and not harmful at all. It was just a little extravagant. However, for the current Chang'e, recovering her cultivation was the most important thing. Being a little extravagant was nothing. Boom. After her strength reached the level of Daoyuo Jingxian, the innate true spirit in Chang'e's body was awakening. The power that belonged to Wang Shu began to recover, trying to break through the seal set by Dijun and the others and descend into the world again. Unfortunately, the seal that suppressed Wang Shu's innate undying true spirit was set up by Dijun, Fuxi, and Wang Shu together. How strong were these three gods? Since ancient times, there were only a few people who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. The seal that they set up together could not be broken without the help of a saint. Enchang, Yi's current strength was only at the level of Daluo. How could she break it? Therefore, the power that belonged to Wang Shu, just as it showed signs of recovery, was suppressed by the seal left behind by Dijun and the others without any resistance. It continued to lurk, waiting for the next recovery. Who is it? The moment the marriage was completed, Dijun flew into a rage in the Lingxiao Hall above the heavenly court. His majestic divine consciousness surged out and swept across the entire untainted land. Those who married 3 times discussed the secrets of heaven and earth, and described the Tao of Yin and Yang. It was the creation of all living beings. The combination of Yin and Yang gave birth to creation, and then gave birth to all living beings, bringing endless vitality to the untainted land. This was called endless creation. Those who could marry 3 times were all people favored by heaven and earth, and had the bearing of a celestial emperor. Otherwise, how could they be qualified to represent heaven and earth to explain the creation of Yin and Yang? Just like Dijun, as a celestial emperor, he could marry people according to the heavenly Tao. The person who married people must be a figure born from the Tao. As the lord of all living beings, he could shake his position as a celestial emperor. In this case, how could Dijun not be angry? When a celestial emperor was angry, heaven and earth changed colors. At this moment, heaven and earth suddenly became incomparably oppressive, and a murderous intent filled the air. All the living beings in the untainted land felt an inexplicable sense of fear in their hearts at the same time. It was as if they were facing a terrifying demon god. An unbearable pressure hit their hearts, causing them to tremble uncontrollably. Boom! Dijun's divine consciousness descended from the 9 heavens. An unparalleled power erupted, distorting space-time and even interfering with the operation of heaven and earth. In a place where no one could see, Dijun's spiritual sense seemed to have transcended time and space, standing at the end of time and space, overlooking the passage of time. In a trance, time paused at this moment. At this moment, everything that had happened in the untainted land was clearly reflected in Dijun's mind. Feng Zichen, do you know that you're courting death? In an instant, Dijun found the source of everything. The human Feng Zichen. In the next moment, boundless killing intent gushed out from Dijun's body, shattering the boundless void as it pounced towards Feng Zichen. On the shore of the East Sea, the boundary that Nuwa had set up to protect the human race seemed to have lost its effect under Dijun's power. That boundless killing intent directly ignored Nuwa's enchantment and enveloped everyone at the wedding venue. How terrifying! What a terrifying killing intent! What's going on with this suffocating feeling? In an instant, everyone felt the surrounding temperature plummet, as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. This was a chill that came from the soul, causing great fear and the shadow of death to loom over their hearts. Fortunately, although Nuwa's enchantment seemed useless, it was still somewhat useful. After passing through Nuwa's enchantment, Dijun's killing intent had weakened layer by layer, and was much weaker than before. Otherwise, everyone present, except for Daluo Jingxian, would have been wiped out by Dijun's killing intent. How could it be like now? Apart from feeling fear, there was nothing abnormal. Dijun was just this powerful. Sensing the changes in the surroundings, Feng Zichen couldn't help but snort coldly. An invisible force erupted, shaking the void and forming ripples, shattering Dijun's killing intent. Although Dijun was strong, it was impossible for him to kill Feng Zichen with just a strand of killing intent. Not to mention him, even a saint couldn't do it. Therefore, Feng Zichen easily shattered Dijun's killing intent. Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this? After doing all this, Feng Zichen asked in a deep voice. Dijun was the celestial emperor personally conferred by the Tao ancestor, and had obtained the recognition of the heavenly Tao. Even a saint would have to address him as Your Majesty to show respect. Feng Zichen was naturally no exception. In the sky above the East Sea, Dijun's shadow silently appeared. He stared coldly at Feng Zichen and didn't say anything for a long time. In the end he said silently, "You're very good. Primordial Sword Ancestor, Sorcerer of the Witch Race, Great Taoist Priests Pangu, Human Emperor Zichen Clan. I admit that I underestimated you previously. I didn't expect you to cause such a big commotion. There's a faint trend of shaking my position. But from now on I won't. You've succeeded in attracting my attention." Humph. After saying that, Dijun didn't make a move. Instead, he withdrew his spiritual will. This made Feng Zichen, who was secretly vigilant, let out a long sigh of relief. To be honest, he was no match for Dijun at all. Although he was the great Taoist priest and Daoyuo Jingxian was invincible, Dijun's realm was half-step primordial chaos. He had long surpassed the scope of Daoyuo Jingxian and mastered incredible power. He could subvert cognition and distort concepts. Don't underestimate this half-step. This was the gap between heaven and earth. This was an insurmountable gap. One was to prove the Tao and verify the Tao. The other was to achieve the Tao and be the Tao. Their strength couldn't be compared. Feng Zichen could roughly guess the reason why Dijun didn't make a move today. It wasn't that he wasn't confident in killing him, but that he didn't have the courage to fight an all-out war with the witch race. He didn't want to offend Niwa, who was behind him. After all, Feng Zichen was also a sorcerer of the witch race. Niwa was the face of the primordial world. If Dijun attacked him, the 12 ancestral sorcerers wouldn't sit back and watch. Niwa wouldn't sit back and watch. In this way, the range of the impact would be wide. If things went wrong, it might trigger the great battle of the liches in advance. And Dijun would never allow such a thing to happen. The current demon race was not prepared to fight an all-out war with the witch race. If they fought rashly, the chances of winning were not very high. Moreover, even if they could win, the price was not something that the current demon race could bear. Thinking of this, Dijun retreated and didn't kill Feng Zichen. He didn't kill him today for a better future. When the demon race defeated the witch race, a mere Taoist priest would be nothing. Phew. Dijun's retreat not only made Feng Zichen heave a sigh of relief, but also made everyone present heave a sigh of relief. It was as if a huge stone hanging in their hearts had finally fallen to the ground. Dijun had put too much pressure on them. The feeling of not being in control of life and death was even more unforgettable. Speaking of which, most of the people present had grown up listening to the legend of Dijun. They had lived under his majesty since they were young. It was inevitable that they were afraid of him. The celestial emperor is still so terrifying. At this moment, not only the people at the wedding venue, but also the countless living beings in the primordial world once again felt the power of the celestial emperor. After all, Dijun's killing intent was earth-shattering. The entire primordial world was alarmed. Countless living beings prostrated themselves under his majesty and trembled. The scene was too terrifying. Who wouldn't be afraid? Ever since the birth of the six saints, the celestial emperor's majesty had been declining day by day. As a result, many people of the new generation did not take the celestial emperor seriously, and thought that in the primordial world, the saints were the most powerful. But today, Dijun had used his invincible strength to tell the world that he was not a match for Yi Qingtang. The primordial world was still his world. Even if the saints were in the world, they could not shake his position. Your Majesty is invincible. The heavenly court. The 3 palaces, 6 courtyards and 72 palaces, as well as Zhoxing and hundreds of millions of small stars. Above them, the demon race living among them suddenly let out the most pious cry after feeling Dijun's majesty. Dijun was their faith. Although they didn't know why Dijun was angry, this didn't stop them from expressing the excitement in their hearts. The moment he made a move, he suppressed the entire primordial world. With such powerful strength, how many people in the world could be a match for him? They were cheering for Dijun's strength. Your Majesty is invincible. Your Majesty is invincible. At first, this cry only spread in the heavenly court and the sea of stars. But as the cry spread, it spread wider and wider, and the voice became louder and louder. Gradually, it connected and resounded throughout the entire starry sky. Then, It spread out from the starry sky and resounded in the sky above the primordial world, ringing in the ears of all living beings. Celestial Emperor. In a trance, the image of a majestic emperor seemed to appear in the hearts of all living beings. It was incomparably domineering, incomparably precious, and shook people's hearts. Ancient memories were awakening. The scene of the celestial emperor suppressing the primordial world in the past appeared in the hearts of all living beings again, making them understand. This primordial world was still the primordial world. The liches were the true masters of the world. They had always been so and had never changed. Even the appearance of a saint could not change this point. It did not shake their rule. It had to be said that although Dijun did not get rid of the trouble of Fengzichen this time, it had really intimidated all living beings in the primordial world. It made them feel the majesty of the heavenly court again, and put away the thoughts that they should not have. Although Dijun had left, the atmosphere at the wedding venue could no longer return to the previous cheerful atmosphere. After all, Fengzichen had offended the celestial emperor. For a moment, the hearts of everyone present wavered. Other than the hardcore allies of the human race, many people had the intention to leave. In recent years, the human race had become more and more powerful. Therefore, when Fengzichen got married, other than the allies of the human race, many of the surrounding races also sent people to congratulate him. According to their original intention, they had only come to congratulate him. It might not be very useful to Dijun. However, Dijun knew this, Niwa knew it, and Fengzichen also knew it. However, the guests below did not know it. This did not prevent Fengzichen from fooling them. Fengzichen was also very helpless. Today was his big day. If the wedding was halfway through and everyone left, then he would lose a lot of face today. Left with no other choice, Fengzichen could only come up with this plan to make everyone stay. At this moment, even if someone saw through it, they would not leave. That was because there was another meaning in Fengzichen's words. You don't dare to offend Dijun, but do you dare to offend Niwa? Therefore, it was best to stay and attend the wedding in peace. A Khanate godfiend born from the origin of creation. This Pengzichen clan is really lucky to be able to find such a woman to marry. How enviable. In the void, streams of ancient spirit wills were colliding and communicating with one another. These were the great magicians of the primordial world. Whether it was the appearance of a human marriage or Dijun's attack, they were all worthy of their attention. Therefore, after Dijun stopped, they deliberately cast their gazes and secretly observed the main character of this event. Of course, they were no stranger to Fengzichen. Chang'e, on the other hand, shocked them. This was another Khanate godfiend that had never appeared before, and it was a Khanate godfiend born from the origin of creation. How strange! In the primordial world, although there were many Khanate godfiends, they referred to ordinary Khanate godfiends. Top Khanate godfiends like Kuan Pengzhen Yuanzi were still very rare. Every Khanate godfiend with such aptitude was worth paying attention to. In the future, they might be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Fortunately, Goddess Niwa made preparations in advance. Otherwise, it would be dangerous today. Feeling the gazes focused on the two of them, Fengzichen frowned, but he could not help but secretly rejoice. Long ago, Niwa had expected such a situation. She deliberately tampered with Chang'e and used the origin of creation to conceal Chang'e's true identity. Otherwise, Chang'e's true identity would not be hidden from the eyes of these old fellows. Then Fengzichen was in big trouble. Taking a Khanate godfiend with the creation attribute and marrying an ancient moon god with the fate of empress were obviously two different concepts. No matter how tolerant Dijun was, he probably could not tolerate her. Fortunately, Niwa's understanding of the Tao of creation was extremely deep and could be said to be the best in the primordial world. She personally covered up Chang'e, and it was almost fake. There were no more than 3 people in the primordial world who could see through it. Speaking of which, Niwa and Fushi were clearly Khanate godfiends born from the Tao of Yin and Yang, but they each broke their own boundaries and walked their own paths. One achieved the Tao through creation, and the other achieved the Tao through the Khanate 8 trigrams. It was amazing. This was also one of the reasons why Feng Zichen firmly believed that Nuwa was not simple. People said that although Nuwa was the first of the 6 saints to achieve the Tao, her strength was the weakest among the saints because she relied too much on merit. In Feng Zichen's opinion, this was undoubtedly very funny. Not to mention that among the 6 saints, which one of them did not achieve the Tao through merit? Just the fact that Nuwa had walked her own path early was enough to prove her extraordinariness. Those who underestimated her would pay the price in the end. The merit obtained from creating a human was merit, but the merit obtained from establishing a sect was not merit? The 6 saints of the primordial world all became saints by virtue, without exception. Among them, Nuwa became a saint by completing the human path. Therefore, she had been enlightened by the human path. Her foundation was so deep that it was far from the 5 saints who established sects to become saints. In the primordial world, only Tao ancestor Hongjun, who had been enlightened by the heavenly path, and goddess Hutu, who had been enlightened by the earth path, could be on par with her. Nuwa's strength was definitely top-notch among the saints. It was far from being as simple as it seemed. Sun Star Sun Temple. After returning here, Dijun could no longer suppress the anger in his heart, and could not help but roar loudly. Bastard! What a bastard! This was the birthplace of Dijun and Tai. It was also the ancestral land of the Golden Crow clan. It was also the supreme holy land of the Demon clan. Few outsiders could set foot in it. Therefore, only here could Dijun roar loudly without caring about his image, and vent the anger in his heart to his heart's content. Thus, he did not have to worry about being discovered by outsiders and damaging the dignity of the celestial emperor. Big brother, why are you so angry? Although Feng Zichen's status is noble, he is just a Daoyuo Jingxian. Even if he is invincible in this realm, he is still a Daoyuo Jingxian. As long as he does not exceed this range, he is just a slightly bigger ant to us 2 brothers. When you and I take that crucial step, no matter if he is the sword ancestor or the great Taoist priests, we can destroy him with a flick of our fingers. There is no need to take it to heart. On the other side, after Dijun vented the anger in his heart, Tai came forward and advised. From his words, he did not take Feng Zichen seriously at all. It was as if he was not talking about some great medium of the untainted land, but some other ant. However, he was Tai, the top expert of the untainted land, the real number 1 person of the demon clan. He was even stronger than Dijun and Fushi. Others were not qualified to look down on Feng Zichen, but he was. Although his cultivation had not reached the level of Daoyuo Jingxian, his strength had long reached this realm. In front of him, Daoyuo Jingxian was indeed not much different from an ant. Only a half-step primordial chaos expert was worthy of his scorn. As the great Taoist priests, Feng Zichen was naturally an extremely powerful existence in the eyes of Daoyuo Jingxian. However, in the eyes of a half-step primordial chaos overlord, he was nothing. Without personally touching the realm of the primordial chaos Tao realm, one would never know the power of that realm. It was the Tao, the truth, and the law. Its power was endless and contained everything. The current untainted land was different from the untainted land in Feng Zichen's memory. Its overall strength had improved by a level. Experts of the great perfection of the sage-to-be were no longer the peak below the saint. Above them, there was the existence of half-step primordial chaos. This was the current peak of the untainted land. However, it might not be long before half-step primordial chaos experts were eliminated. This was because Dijun, Tai, Dijiang, and the leaders of the shaman and demon clans were about to take the last half-step and cultivate to the primordial chaos Tao realm, which was comparable to the saints. At that time, the saying that the saints were invincible would really become a legend. Originally, after Feng Zichen became the great Taoist priests, he should have been the strongest existence below the saints. However, under his manipulation, the strength of the untainted land had been promoted as a whole. As a result, although his strength was strong, he was far from being invincible. He was still suppressed by others. Fate was playing tricks on people. This was nothing more than that. Second brother, you don't understand. Shaking his head, Dijun replied. I don't understand? I don't understand again. Or is big brother worried that he will be 1 step ahead of the 2 of us, and become the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian before us? Seeing Dijun like this, Tai felt a little sad. Ever since the fall of the 9 golden crows, Dijun's invincible Dao heart had been flawed. He was no longer as great as before. Therefore, when he spoke, he could not help but have a hint of provocation, trying to reawaken Dijun's ambition. Sure enough, although the provocation was simple, it was extremely useful. After listening to Tai's provocation, Dijun's eyes could not help but turn cold. Afraid? Why would I be afraid? If it weren't for the witch race and fellow Taoist Niwa, I could kill him with one finger. As if he was very dissatisfied with Tai's words, Dijun's tone could not help but carry a trace of displeasure, and the aura on his body was released. Boom. At this moment, Dijun's aura was like a rainbow. The aura of the Emperor was vast and mighty. The aura of the Celestial Emperor was completely displayed. It suppressed the universe and swept across the myriad worlds. However, there was no joy in Tai's heart, only sadness. He could not go back. He really could not go back. Dijun was no longer the Dijun from before. If it were in the past, when Tai used such a shallow provocation, Dijun would only laugh it off. He would not have such a big reaction like today. Chapter 451. There was indeed a problem with Dijun's Taoist heart. Of course, this was not necessarily a bad thing for Dijun. As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. When Dijun's Taoist heart completely recovered, it would be the time for him to become the primordial Daoyuo Jingxian. However, if Dijun's Taoist heart could not recover, then he would not have the chance to become the primordial Daoyuo Jingxian in this lifetime. The primordial chaos was about the great Tao being as one and the Taoist heart being perfect and flawless. If one's Taoist heart was damaged, it was already very good to be able to maintain his current strength. It was impossible to hope to take another step forward. Dijun's anger seemed to be nothing, but the impact was not small. He was the master of the Sun Star, and his every move was in accordance with the Sun Star. His aura suddenly erupted, and the Sun Star immediately reacted. Endless heat waves swept out, shocking the entire starry sky. Looking up from the primitive land, one would only feel that the sun was even more dazzling. However, the demons living in the boundless starry sky were firmly affected. They felt that the surrounding yang energy suddenly rose, and a terrifying high temperature attacked, burning everything like a furnace. For a moment, most of the demon warriors could not help but tremble in fear. They did not know who had angered His Majesty, causing him to be furious. Big brother, calm down. There were thousands of thoughts in his heart, but Tai did not show any of them. He stepped forward and came to Dijun's side to calm him down. Little brother, your method of goading me into action isn't very clever. However, it is extremely useful. At this moment, Dijun suddenly calmed down and said to Tai with a smile. With the change in Dijun's mood, the restlessness of the Sun Star gradually subsided, and the boundless starry sky regained its tranquility. After all, it was the place where he was born. Returning here, Dijun's heart seemed to have been baptized. There was a mysterious force protecting him, removing all negative effects for him. Big brother, has your Taoist heart recovered? Seeing the change in Dijun, Tai was overjoyed and hurriedly asked. At this moment, Dijun was what Dijun should be like in his heart. Confident, flamboyant, fierce. No. It's just that after returning here, the power of the sun has been added to my body, temporarily suppressing the negative effects brought about by the loss of my Tao heart. Shaking his head, Dijun said in a deep voice. Ever since the fall of the 9 golden crows, this was the first time he had returned to his birthplace. He didn't expect such a wonderful change to occur that could suppress all negative emotions. Don't worry. Here, Dijun felt extremely relieved. It was this feeling that made him temporarily put down the pain of losing his son, and his wounded heart was comforted. Oh! The Sun God Temple has such a function. It seems that we still don't know enough about our birthplace. Tai raised his eyebrows in surprise. It was the first time they had discovered that the Sun God Temple had such a function. In the past, the Sun God Temple's function was to gather the power of the sun. This was naturally very important at the beginning of their cultivation. It could speed up their cultivation. However, after they became Daoyuo Jingxian, They no longer needed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The sun god temple's effect on them became negligible. Other than having some commemorative significance, it didn't have much value. However, the sun star was formed by Panga's left eye. How could the Khanate temple that was born in it be so simple? Of course, there were endless mysteries. It was just that Dijun, Tai-yi, and the others didn't discover it. Or rather, there was some unknown power that suppressed the magic of the sun god temple and prevented outsiders from discovering it. However, treasures wouldn't be covered in dust forever. There would eventually be a time when they would reveal themselves. Dijun, Tai-yi's death was imminent. As their common mother, the sun star couldn't bear to see her child die. Driven by instinct, she activated the sun god temple and reproduced the power of this supreme treasure. The power of the sun star spread throughout the primordial world and the myriad worlds. How great was that? Even a saint couldn't compare to it. If she wanted to activate a supreme treasure, who could stop her? Even the power that suppressed the sun god Hall was unable to contend against the might of the sun star. It dispersed in an instant. That was why Dijun's Tao heart was awakened. There's no hurry to investigate the sun god temple. It's here anyway. Can it run away? The most important thing now is to break through to the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. Only by stepping into this realm can our demon race have the capital to defeat the Magi. Otherwise, who can compete with the Lady of Earth among the demon race? Thinking of the Lady of Earth, Dijun couldn't help but feel a little heavy. She was a true saint. If she interfered in the battle between the Magi and the demons, there would be many variables in this battle. Although if Dijun asked Nuwa to deal with the Lady of Earth using their relationship with the demons back then, Nuwa would definitely not refuse. However, it was not Dijun's character to place his hopes on others. If his hopes were not on himself, it would always make him feel uneasy. Therefore, it was better to place his hopes on himself. In the end, people still had to rely on themselves. Breaking through to the primordial chaos was the only way Dijun could think of to deal with the Lady of Earth with his own strength. The primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian was a realm that was comparable to a saint. Other than not being able to borrow the power of the heavenly Tao, there was almost no difference between him and a saint. This was the true capital to compete with a saint. That's right. Only by becoming the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian can our demon race defeat the Magi. Nodding, Tai-yi said with a solemn expression. The shaman tribe was too blessed by the heavens. As a race formed from Panga's bloodline, other than being tainted by the baleful aura of the heavens, they did not have any flaws. They could be said to be perfect. The demon race could not compare to them. It could be said that since the birth of the demon race, they had been suppressed by the Magi. Even if the demon race occupied Zhousing, occupied the heaven realm, and established the heavenly court, they only had the capital to compete with the Magi. They could not win the battle, and were still at a disadvantage. Since the sun god temple can suppress the injuries on my Tao heart, I'll cultivate in seclusion here and strive to reach the primordial chaos Tao realm as soon as possible. With a thought, Dijun made a decision. If he wanted to recover his Tao heart and break through to the primordial chaos Tao realm in the shortest time possible, he could only do it here. In other places, although Dijun was confident that he could reach the primordial chaos Tao realm, it would take a long time. Now the great battle between the Magi and the demon race was imminent. What the demon race lacked the most was time. Dijun could not delay. Oh, don't worry, big brother. Just cultivate in seclusion. I'm about to break through too. When the time comes, you and I will reach the Tao together. If word gets out, it will be a good story. It's just a pity that fellow Taoist Fuxi hasn't accumulated enough. He's still quite a distance away from becoming a primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. I'm afraid he won't be able to break through before the battle between the Magi and the demon race. Seeing Dijun like this, Tai-yi was naturally happy. However, when he thought of Fuxi, he felt that it was a pity. In terms of aptitude, they were all Khanate saints. Fuxi was not inferior to the two brothers. In terms of status, the three of them were all the three emperors of the demon race. The difference in status was not big. However, even so, Dijun, Tai-yi, and Tai-yi were still a step away from reaching the primordial chaos Tao realm. As for Fushi, he was still quite a distance away. He was far inferior to the two of them. The reason was because of the difference in birth. Dijun and Tai-E were born on the Sun Star. It could be said that they were born from the top of the primordial world. Even the three pure ones could not compare to them. The light of the sun shone on the primordial world, bringing endless vitality to the earth. This was an immeasurable amount of merit. Moreover, as long as the sun was not extinguished, the merit would not be cut off. As for Dijun and Tai-E, they were born to enjoy this merit. This was the real reason why they could become celestial emperors. If they wanted to become celestial emperors, they would need to be extremely lucky. Only an existence like the Sun Star, which was blessed by the entire primordial world, could support it. With the protection of the Sun Star, no matter how great Dijun and Tai-E's achievements were, it would not be surprising. It could be said that the two of them could cultivate to the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian while lying down. However, this would take a long time. As for Fushi, he was born in the Qifeng Mountain. Although it could be called a top grotto heaven in the primordial world, it was far from being comparable to the Sun Star. This caused the gap between him and Dijun, Tai-E and Tai-E. He was born this way. What could he do? In terms of background, there were not many people in the primordial world who could compare to Dijun and Tai-E. With Fushi's talent, if the battle between the Lich and the demon race could be delayed by a few hours, he might be able to cultivate to the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. However, there was really not enough time. This could only be said to be Fushi's bad luck. Sigh. Everyone has their own fate. Fellow Taoist Fushi doesn't have this luck. There's nothing we can do. Dijun was very open-minded about this matter. Ever since Fushi joined the demon race, he had never mistreated Fushi. Whatever the two brothers had, he would definitely give Fushi a share to prevent him from being unhappy. Even so, Fushi could not cultivate to the primordial chaos Dao realm. It could only be said that his fate was not enough. Big brother, what are you talking about? If fellow Taoist Fushi also reaches the primordial chaos Dao realm, wouldn't we have a higher chance of winning against the witch race? Dijun's attitude vaguely made Tai-E a little unhappy. He knew that Dijun did not like Nuwa and Fushi very much. If not for the fact that the witch race was so powerful that the two brothers could not compete with them, Dijun would not have invited Fushi and Nuwa to join the demon race, nor would he have given them such a high status. This was because he had no choice but to use their strength to fight against the witch race. However, it was true that the existence of Nuwa and Fushi had taken away Dijun's power. This made him very unhappy. Perhaps this was the nature of an emperor. He had an abnormal passion for power. However, it would have been fine if it had been any other time. However, now that the demon race was on the verge of extinction, it was a little too much for Dijun to still be like this. One had to know that Fushi had contributed greatly to the demon race being where they were today. Brother, you worry too much. When you and I become primordial chaos Daoyuo Jingxian, there will be no suspense in the battle between the witch race and the demon race. Our demon race will definitely win. At that time, fellow Taoist Fushi might be able to achieve the Tao in one fell swoop with the momentum of a great victory. Dijun smiled and said nonchalantly, in the future there was no need for Fushi. The two brothers were enough for the demon race. Fushi was a little redundant. He could use this opportunity to get rid of Fushi. After all, the demon race still needed Fushi's help in the past. But now he was not so important. The demon race. They had already passed the most difficult time. If the demon race defeated the witch race, they would become the only protagonist of the world. Dijun would also become the true number one person in the primordial world. Tai-E was his only younger brother. He could share the glory with him and be respected as the East Emperor. But Fushi was an outsider. Why should he be respected as him? Wasn't this annoying? Moreover, Fushi was backed by Nuwa. This was even more intolerable for Dijun. The combined influence of the two of them was already enough to shake Dijun's rule. As the emperor, how could he tolerate such a thing to happen? Therefore, Fushi had to die, and he had to die in the hands of the witch race. This way, he would be able to arouse Nuwa's anger and make her attack the witch race without caring about anything. Then the demon race's chances of winning would undoubtedly be greater. using his own death to achieve the hegemony of the demon race. How magnificent! How magnificent! This could also be considered Emperor Shi's final contribution to the demon race. Thinking of this, Dijun glanced at Tai Yi and could not help but shake his head. This younger brother of his was still too sentimental. But if Fushi did not die, the demon race would always have hidden dangers. Other than Fushi's plan, Dijun did not plan to tell Tai Yi or anyone else. Firstly, he knew that Tai Yi and Fushi had a good relationship. If he told Tai Yi about this plan, he would definitely stop him. Secondly, Fushi was a grandmaster of divination. If he secretly schemed against him, it would be fine if he thought about it. If he said it out loud, he would definitely sense it and create variables. Second brother, let's not talk about Fushi. You on the other hand, big brother, you should really apologize. If you weren't dragged down by me with your talent, it would be easy for you to reach the primordial chaos path realm. Surpassing the saint would only be a matter of time. Now that you are being suppressed by the saint, it is all my fault. Seeing that Tai Yi still wanted to say something, Dijun hurriedly changed the topic. If they kept talking about Fushi like this, it was very likely that they would be sensed by him. They had to be on guard. However, these words were indeed spoken by Dijun from the bottom of his heart. Tai meant big. One meant one of Tao begets one. From this name, one could tell how extraordinary Tai Yi was. He was the existence with the best aptitude in the primordial world after Tao ancestor Hongjun. In the era when Tao ancestor did not appear, Tai Yi was the number one in the primordial world. Even the three pure ones did not dare to compete with him. Even without the Hongmeng purple chi, it would be easy for him to reach the primordial chaos path realm. But he did not. Because he joined the heavenly court. The heavenly court was the place with the most karma in the primordial world. A long time ago, Tai Yi's realm had already risen to the primordial chaos path realm. Otherwise, he would not have been able to suppress the two of them alone when he was guiding them to become saints. However, due to the burden of the heavenly court, the karma on his body was entangled. He was unable to take the last half step and reach the realm that was comparable to saints. Only then was he surpassed by the 6 saints step by step. Dijun was not wrong when he said that it was all his fault that Tai Yi could not reach the primordial chaos path realm. That was the truth. It was also what Dijun felt guilty about. Chapter 452. If he had known that the heavenly court would drag down Tai Yi's cultivation, Dijun would not have let Tai Yi join the heavenly court no matter what. His original intention of establishing the heavenly court was to gather the providence of heaven and earth to assist the two of them in their cultivation. However, things did not go as he wished. He did gain benefits, but Tai Yi did not. Dijun regretted it. Without the heavenly court, Tai Yi would have attained the Tao early on, primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Even if he was not as fast as the 6 saints, he would not be much slower. He would not be farther and farther away like today. On the path of cultivation, one step slower would lead to another, especially for people with outstanding talent like them. If they were one step slower, it would be difficult for them to catch up. Unfortunately, when Dijun realized this, it was already too late. The karma between Tai Yi and the heavenly court had long been entangled. It was almost impossible for him to escape and leave. He could only brace himself and continue forward. Niwa was more alert. She had escaped early and escaped the quagmire of the heavenly court. If Tai Yi had left with Niwa back then, his fate today might have been very different. Dijun established the heavenly court and achieved himself, but he destroyed Tai Yi. It was not an exaggeration to say that he had used Tai Yi's future to exchange for his own. If such a thing had happened between other brothers, they would have fallen out long ago. However, Dijun and Tai Yi were different. The friendship between them was too strong. Their brotherhood was moving. It was even better than the relationship between the 12 ancestral shamans. Dijun could scheme against everyone, but he would not scheme against Tai Yi. Tai Yi's strength was clearly stronger than Dijun's. He also possessed the Khanate cardinal treasure, the Bell of Chaos. He could be said to be the number 1 person in the heavenly court. However, he was willing to submit to Dijun and fight for him to conquer the vast territory ruled by the demon race. It could be said that his brother's relationship with him was deep. After all, although the demon race was big, there were only 2 golden crows born from the Khanate. Big brother, don't say that. This is my own choice. Seeing Dijun blaming himself so much, Tai hurriedly said. It was not entirely Dijun's fault. Who knew that the heavenly court was a trap? In the beginning, Tai had indeed benefited from the celestial court. His cultivation progressed rapidly, and it didn't take long for him to reach the half-step origin Dao realm. It was also at that time that Tai realized that something was wrong. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break through the last half-step. After pondering for a long time, he realized that it was because of the heavenly courts. Unfortunately, he understood it too late. Besides, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be stuck in the realm for so many years. This will make my foundation more solid, and my accumulation more profound. With a strong foundation, I may not be weaker than the 3 pure ones. After a while, seeing that his persuasion was useless, Tai changed his words and continued persuading. That's true. Second brother's talent is the best in the primordial world. Even if he attained the Tao later than the 3 pure ones, he would still be weaker than them. As expected, Dijun's eyes lit up when he heard Tai Yi's words. Tai Yi's talent was indisputable. There were many Khanate saints in the primordial world, but Tai was the only one who was born with a Khanate cardinal treasure. This explained everything. It was not impossible for Tai to overtake others on the path of cultivation. Second brother, it's good that you're confident. Big brother, you have to work hard too. Otherwise, when you become a primordial chaos Daoyuo Jinxian, and I'm still in the Sage-to-be realm, I'll be letting you down for all these years. For the heavenly courts, Tai had delayed his future. If Dijun could not break through to the primordial chaos Dao realm, he would not have the face to stand in the primordial world even if others did not say anything. Yes, big brother, don't worry and go into seclusion. I'm going into seclusion too. I have a feeling that I'm not far away from attaining the Tao. When the time comes, you and I will attain the Tao together. I think the faces of the Magi will be very interesting. Thinking of the expressions of the ancestral race after the 2 of them attain the Tao, even Tai's state of mind could not help but fluctuate. He joked with Dijun for a long time. Tai hated the 12 ancestral Magi to the core. If it was a one-on-one battle, Tai was confident that he would win even if he did not use the Bell of Chaos. However, the 12 ancestral Magi never fought with him one-on-one. They always swarmed him and beat him until he had no temper. It was really sullen. Yes. When the time comes, we'll definitely teach the Magi a lesson. Tai's words touched Dijun's heart. He nodded repeatedly. Yes. Tai will not disturb Big Brother's seclusion. I'll leave first. At this point, there was nothing to talk about. Only a breakthrough was the right thing to do. Therefore, Tai planned to go back into seclusion. However, before he left, he saw Dijun frown and say, although I don't take the Zichin clan seriously, I can't let him have an easy time. Otherwise, won't the world think that the demon clan is easy to bully? If everyone is like him, wantonly provoking the demon clan without paying the price, then where is the dignity of the demon clan? Dijun suddenly thought of Feng Zichin, and planned to teach him a lesson to warn all living beings in the primordial world. That's right. If this person is not punished, the dignity of the demon clan will not be shown. However, among the demon clan, only Yumi and Fushi can defeat Feng Zichin. And you and I have no time to attack. Because of his identity, Fushi will not attack him. The rest might not be his match. That's a little difficult. Thinking of this, Tai frowned. With Feng Zichin's strength, unless it was a half-step primordial chaos expert, no one would be his match. However, only Dijun, Tai, and Fushi had such an expert in the demon clan. Dijun Tai was in seclusion and had no time to attack. Fushi was Niwa's brother. Of course he would not attack Niwa's face. That left Kuan Peng and the others. These people were either quasi-saints or Daoyuo Jinxian. How could they be a match for the great Taoist priests? Difficult. Too difficult. If we can't deal with Feng Zichin, then we'll deal with the humans. Isn't he the human emperor? Then we'll use the blood of his people to wash away his sins. That's good. Everyone knows that this is the consequence of offending the demon clan. Dijun sneered and said. Feng Zichen was not easy to deal with, but were the humans not easy to deal with? With the strength of the demon clan, the humans were at their mercy. That's not good. If we attack the humans rashly, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to explain to fellow Taoist Niwa. Tai was a little hesitant about Dijun's suggestion. The humans were a race created by Niwa. If they attacked them, wouldn't it be a slap to Niwa's face? If the demon clan didn't have a good relationship with Niwa, it would be fine if they offended her. However, Niwa was an ally of the demon clan, and their relationship was extremely close. Wouldn't this be pushing Niwa out? Second brother, don't worry about fellow Taoist Niwa. If she cared about the past, she wouldn't have let the Zichen clan get married at this juncture. Obviously, she wants to completely separate herself from the demon clan. Speaking of Niwa, Dijun's tone couldn't help but be a little angry. Feng Zichen was Niwa's face in the primordial world. Niwa must know that he was getting married. Perhaps she was supporting him behind the scenes. Niwa knew the harm of human marriage to him, but Niwa still did it. This was clearly not taking him seriously. How could Dijun not be angry? This was also why Dijun was dissatisfied with Niwa. At that time, he ignored the barrier set up by Niwa and directly attacked Feng Zichen. It might not be without this reason. Niwa didn't give him any face. Then why should he give Niwa any face? Big brother, I think you might be thinking too much. Fellow Taoist Niwa might not think so. After a while, Tai deliberated over his words and replied carefully. He really didn't believe that Niwa would be like this. What good would it do her if the demon clan declined? Niwa was different from other saints. There was a relationship between her and the demon clan. The stronger the demon clan was, the greater the benefits for her. If the demon clan declined, her interests would also be damaged. The gains did not make up for the losses. Besides, if a mere human marriage could shake the position of the Celestial Emperor, then the position of the Celestial Emperor would be too boring. It was better to abdicate early so that he wouldn't be ousted by others. Big brother, you're still a little petty. You've lost the spirit of the Celestial Emperor. Tai thought silently in his heart. Sigh. Second brother, you're still too emotional. You don't know how sinister people are. Dijun was helpless towards his younger brother. Perhaps it was the confidence brought by his own strength, but Tai was often disdainful of conspiracies and tricks. He thought that those things were not presentable. He was also sincere towards his friends and never cared about gains and losses. Perhaps, this was why Tai was so powerful. Only by being sincere in the Tao could one obtain the Tao. Tai had displayed this perfectly. Dijun, on the other hand, was good at scheming. His state of mind had fallen, so he was not as good as Tai. Alright, second brother, you don't have to worry too much. Since the human race has already walked out of the ancestral land, it means that they intend to join the battle for hegemony in the primordial world. Then it's understandable for the demon clan to attack the human race. Fellow Taoist Niwa can't say much. She can't always protect the human race, right? Suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Dijun said reasonably. If the human race wanted to grow stronger, it was impossible to rely on Niwa's protection alone. Only by experiencing blood and fire could they establish a foothold in the primordial world. The demon clan attacking the human race was a form of training for the human race. Even if Niwa was dissatisfied, she could only accept it. Even so, we can't go too far. When the demon clan attacks, let them avoid the human race's ancestral land. The human race in the other places will depend on their own fortune. Tai thought that it made sense and agreed to Dijun's plan. However, he also added a restriction. They could not attack the human race's ancestral land to avoid completely angering Niwa. Let's do as second brother says. Dijun did not want to argue with Tai over such a small matter, so he simply agreed. Anyway, it was to teach Feng Zichen a lesson. It did not matter how many humans he killed as long as he achieved his goal. It was not a big deal to let some of them go. In this way, he could save Niwa's face. Why not? Although Dijun said it happily, he could not bear to completely fall out with Niwa. Now the situation of the Lich was unclear. Niwa was still useful to him. It was not a good time to fall out with her. He had to wait until the demon clan defeated the wizard clan and completely controlled the situation in the primordial world. At that time, Dijun would have the capital to fall out with Nuwa. Under Dijun's order, in the boundless starry sky, countless demon clans were ready to go to the lower world to find trouble with the human race at any time. And this would be the prelude to the massacre of humans by the demon clan. If Feng Zichen knew that the massacre of humans by the demon clan was caused by this, what would he think? The great calamity of the human race was about to arrive, but Feng Zichen did not sense it at all. That was because he was experiencing a joyous event in his life, entering the bridal chamber. As time passed, the wedding had reached the final stage, which was also the most important stage. The bride and groom entered the bridal chamber. Feng Zichen held Chang Yi's hand and walked into his bedroom amidst everyone's congratulations. Originally, according to Feng Zichen's original plan, at most he and Chang Yi were husband and wife on the surface. Once their true spirit awakened, this marriage would naturally end. But men, most of them did not mean what they said. They ate in the bowl and looked at the pot. Chang Yi was such a beautiful woman, and she looked at him shyly. How could Feng Zichen tolerate it? On impulse, he threw all his plans to the back of his mind. Ha 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 ha. I think you can imagine it yourselves. Only this way is the most moving. After a night of wind and rain, Chang Yi collapsed in Feng Zichen's arms with a tired face. The light of the moon on her body surged and enveloped the two of them. On Feng Zichen's body, the light of the Khanate Supreme Yang flickered nonstop. It resonated with the light of the moon on Chang Yi's body and gradually merged into one, turning into a yin-yang taiji diagram. After that, a purple star rose from Feng Zichen's sea of consciousness and hung above the yin-yang taiji diagram. Wisps of purple gas hung down, reconciling yin and yang, and operating the two modes. The yin-yang taiji diagram slowly rotated, and boundless Dao runes were produced. Dao and truth intertwined, and countless mysterious runes appeared and disappeared. The mysteries of the Khanate Dao of Yin and Yang appeared in the hearts of Feng Zichen and Chang Yi. The intersection of Yin and Yang was the most mysterious. With the Emperor Star in the middle to reconcile and operate the two modes, it added a bit of mystery. The two of them immediately fell into enlightenment. In a trance, Feng Zichen's understanding of the Khanate Dao of Yin and Yang deepened. The things that he didn't understand in the past were all understood now. The problems that he found difficult in the past were also extremely simple, as if he was suddenly enlightened. Moreover, the supreme divine power that he couldn't comprehend before, the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light, also had a rough idea now. A little bit of the moon light flickered in his body, entangling with the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light. They gradually evolved and corroborated each other, exploring the source of Yin and Yang together. It was getting closer to the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light step by step. This was another supreme divine power that Feng Zichen dreamed of, the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light. Yin and Yang gave birth to all things, and everything in the universe was in Yin and Yang. Therefore, the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light contained all things and could melt everything. It was extremely powerful. Moreover, this divine power could be combined with the Khanate Five Elements Divine Light to form another supreme divine power, the Khanate Five Elements Divine Light. In this world, there was almost no one who could escape from the Khanate Supreme Yang Divine Light. Once the Khanate Five Elements Divine Light was released, how many people in the universe could resist it? This supreme divine power was enough to be ranked in the top 10 of all the divine powers in the universe. It was a true weapon of mass destruction. Although Feng Zichen's understanding of the Khanate Five Elements Divine Light was not very deep, as his understanding of the Khanate Dao of Yin and Yang deepened, he would be able to understand this divine power sooner or later. While Feng Zichen's transformation was still ongoing, Chang Yi also began to change. The moonlight on her body became denser and denser. Ancient and mysterious runes appeared and danced around her, drawing in strands of mysterious energy from the core of the lunar star to increase her cultivation. This was the power of the lunar pearl. Under the power of Yin and Yang, the lunar pearl was awakened. It absorbed the most fundamental energy from the lunar star to help Chang'e recover. However, with Shihe guarding the lunar star, the lunar pearl did not dare to draw in the lunar star's power on a large scale to avoid attracting Shihe's attention. It could only steal the power intermittently when Shihe was unprepared. This way, although it was beneficial to Chang'e, it was far from enough to help her break the seal. It would take a long time for Wang Shu to reappear in the world. Thus 100 years passed in a hurry. Feng Zichen and Chang'e finally woke up from their enlightenment. The two looked at each other and smiled. They put on their clothes and walked out hand in hand. However, as soon as Feng Zichen walked out of his bedroom, he sensed that the fate of the human race seemed to be in danger. It suddenly trembled violently and appeared in the sky above the human Dao imperial court. At this time, if the mortals looked up, they would see a blazing torch fire suddenly appear in the sky above the human Dao imperial court. The torch fire was incomparably hot and enveloped in five-colored light. It landed in the sky above the human Dao imperial court like the sun, shining brightly and illuminating the entire human race. Countless images of the human race appeared in the fire, playing out the history of the human race one after another. This was the history of the human race. Everything that had happened since the birth of the human race had been recorded by the fate of the human race. Around the fire and in the five-colored light, the images of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and Qilin appeared from time to time. They were the strongest allies of the human race. The five-colored light was a manifestation of the fates of the five Khanate races. They surrounded the torch fire, representing their strongest friendship with the human race. Look, our fates are connected and inseparable. We must advance and retreat together. That's the torch fire. It's the fates of the human race. Why did he suddenly appear? Did something happen to the human race? The young people might not recognize the origin of the torch fire, but many of the older generation had witnessed the birth of the human race's fate with their own eyes. How could they not recognize him? The fates of the human race wouldn't manifest for no reason. His appearance must be accompanied by a major event. And this major event, it could be good or bad. Everything was possible. For a time, the human race was in a state of panic. They didn't know what had happened. Some of the older generation went straight to the human emperor's palace, wanting to get an answer from the human emperor. However, before they could reach the palace, the torch fire suddenly moved. He grew bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, he had expanded by tens of thousands of times, and was about to blot out the sky. Boom. Then with a boom, a huge beam of light shot out of the torch fire and exploded in the air. It turned into tiny torch fire that fell into the human territory below. Chapter 453. The tiny flames didn't vanish after landing in the human territory. Instead, they burrowed into the bodies of the human primordial unity golden immortals, and merged with their fortunes. All of a sudden, all the human Tai Jinxian felt that their fate was increasing rapidly. They were all puzzled as they didn't know what had happened to cause such a strange change. After Xianhua did all this, his solid body suddenly turned illusory, giving people a feeling that he was like a bubble that would burst at the slightest touch. Clearly, it had taken a great toll on Xianhua to enhance the fortune of all the primordial immortals of the human race at once. It had even damaged his origin, and it would take him at least tens of millions of years to recover. It could be said that his primordial qi was greatly damaged. With his primordial qi damaged, Xianhua's strength was greatly reduced, and he could no longer maintain such a huge body. In the blink of an eye, his body began to shrink, from the size of the sun to a small flame. After shrinking, Xianhua's body also became solid, no longer looking so illusory, which made people feel relieved. Previously, Xianhua looked like it was going to be extinguished at any time, which was really scary. The people were terrified, fearing that it would suddenly be extinguished. The extinction of the human race's fate was a sign of the extinction of the human race. Fortunately, although Xianhua's situation didn't look good, he was still burning, which meant that the human race wasn't really in a desperate situation. However, Xianhua was severely injured for no reason, which was obviously not a good sign, which meant that the future of the human race was bleak. The human race. The future of the human race wouldn't be safe. Thinking of Xianhua's current state, the human higher-ups couldn't help but feel worried. Xianhua was the manifestation of the human race's fate, which was the best representative of the human race's strength. The stronger he was, the stronger the human race was. And vice versa. Now that Xianhua was about to be extinguished, it was reflected on the human race, which meant that even if the human race wasn't facing the extinction of the human race, it was not far away. A great disaster was coming. With this thought, the human experts rushed to the human sovereign palace to see if the human sovereign had a way to resolve this crisis. After all, the human emperor was not only the strongest in the human tribe, but he was also one of the top 10 figures in the entire untainted land. There were not many things that could trouble him. They couldn't solve the crisis of the human race, but it didn't mean that the human emperor couldn't. This is, putting aside the thoughts of the human experts, Feng Zichen couldn't help but feel shocked when he saw this strange scene outside the palace. He knew what was going on. This was the blessing of the clan's fate. This was something that would only happen when the fate of the clan was in danger of being exterminated. In other words, Xianhua had sensed that the human race was on the brink of extinction. That was why he showed himself without being summoned, and even consumed his own essence to increase the fortune of the human experts. This was Xianhua trying his best to raise the prowess of the human experts, so that they could better deal with the upcoming calamity. That was the most frightening part. After all, over the years, with Feng Zichen's efforts and the rapid development of the human race, Xianhua's prowess was already comparable to the experts of Sage-to-be perfection. It was such a strong prowess that was still unstoppable in the face of the impending calamity of the human race. It was imaginable how terrifying this calamity would be. Needless to say, that calamity must be the monster race's massacre calamity. Only such a calamity would put Xianhua in danger of being exterminated. After so many years, what's supposed to come is finally coming. The monster race's massacre calamity is coming. Even though Feng Zichen was prepared for this calamity, he was still a little shocked when it really came. The human race really couldn't fight against the monster race. Even if they were 100 times stronger, even if they had the help of the 5 innate races, they still wouldn't be a match for the monster race. One of the 2 strongest innate races in history. The monster race that could make even the sages wary. Their prowess wasn't bragging, but fighting. The human race was just a postnatal race that was born less than 10 million years ago. How could they fight against the monster race that dominated the untainted land and occupied Zhousing for billions of years? Could it be that the monster race were all idiots? Billions of years of development couldn't compare to 1,000,000 years of development of the human race? The human race fighting against the monster race was undoubtedly like hitting a rock with an egg. But even so, Feng Zichen still wanted to fight against the monster race. If he didn't fight against the monster race, was he going to wait for death with his arms tied? How could the monster race let the human race go just because they didn't resist? No. If they didn't resist, it would only encourage the monster race's arrogance. Therefore, they had to fight. There were still 3 nails in a rotten ship. Not to mention a huge human race. Even if they couldn't win, they had to break a few teeth of the monster race. They had to let the world know that the human race didn't lack iron-blooded people. This battle could only be fought to the death. Other than that, there was no other way. The gap was too big. Besides, everything that the human race had was the result of Feng Zichen and the human race's hard work. Who could take it lying down and watch it be destroyed by the monster race? If they fought, they would die. If they didn't fight, they would die. Then fight. Fight hard. Killing 1 was enough. Killing 2 was a profit. Chang'e, go down and comfort the clansmen. I'll go to the human emperor palace to discuss with the elders. After turning his head and instructing Chang'e, Feng Zichen strode towards the human emperor palace. Originally, Feng Zichen should have personally comforted the clansmen. However, husband and wife were one. After he and Chang'e got married, Chang'e could represent him in this kind of matter to comfort the people. It saved Feng Zichen a lot of trouble. When Feng Zichen arrived at the human emperor palace, there were already many people gathered here. And these people weren't just the elders of the human race. There were almost all the experts of the human race. None of these experts were weaker than the perfected Taijingxian. Among them, there were dozens of experts who had already stepped into the half-step Daoyuo realm and were about to prove their Dao. It could be said that this was the first time that the human experts had gathered together. Usually, they were traveling in the primordial world and rarely returned to the human race. The reason why they were gathered together this time was because they had specially come back to congratulate Feng Zichen on his wedding. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time just to summon these experts who were traveling outside. It's still too little. After a rough glance, there were only about 3,000 to 4,000 human experts present. Feng Zichen couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. 3,000 to 4,000 Taijingxian was naturally a terrifying force in the future. But now it was an extremely weak force. It couldn't even be considered a mid-level force in the primordial world, let alone fight with the monster race. It was estimated that an army of the monster race would be able to destroy the human race. The human race had 3,000 to 4,000 Taijingxian, and the demon race had 3,000 to 4,000 Daoyuo Jingxian. How could they fight this battle? Therefore, in this battle, they could only defend, not attack. Everyone, the great calamity of the human race is coming. I'm sure you've all felt it. After a moment of silence, Feng Zichen glanced at everyone present and said in a deep voice. Xianhua didn't hesitate to make a move. Without him saying anything, everyone present should have guessed what had happened. If they couldn't guess, they would be a little stupid. With such intelligence, it would be difficult for them to survive in the primordial world. Your Majesty, where does the calamity come from? As soon as Feng Zichen finished speaking, someone immediately stepped forward and asked. They knew that the human race was about to face a great calamity, but they didn't know where it came from. If they didn't know the cause, how could they prevent it? The monster race. Without hiding anything, Feng Zichen said directly. This matter couldn't be hidden, and when the monster race army arrived, everyone would naturally know where the calamity came from. Therefore, it was better to say it in advance so that everyone could be prepared. What? The monster race. Hearing this, everyone was shocked and then fell silent. If it were other races, they would have the confidence to protect the human race. But facing the monster race, they didn't have the slightest confidence. These human experts didn't have a specific idea of how strong the monster race was, but they had all seen the strength of the witch race. There were countless primordial unity golden immortals, zenith heaven golden immortals, and dozens of quasi-saints. Destroying the human race would be a piece of cake, and a race that could fight against the witch race for hundreds of millions of years without falling. Its strength could be said to be completely beyond their imagination. With such a great disparity in strength, how could the human race fight? For a moment, the hearts of the human race were filled with despair. Why are you afraid? Seeing the despair spreading in the hall, Feng Zichen said. Your Majesty, that's the monster race, one of the strongest races in the primordial world. In the entire primordial world, except for the witch race, who wouldn't be afraid? Not everyone was Feng Zichen, who didn't have the slightest fear in front of the monster race. In the primordial world, the liches were the sky, and no one could disobey them. Those who offended them would only die. For countless years, many races in the primordial world had been destroyed by the witch race and the witch race. Any one of them was stronger than the current human race, but they were still destroyed. The monster race wanted to destroy the human race, so how could the human race be spared? However, although everyone was in despair, no one asked how the human race had offended the monster race. They weren't fools. When they recalled that Dijun had attacked Feng Zichen during his wedding, they could roughly guess what was going on. However, Feng Zichen couldn't be blamed for this. This marriage was arranged by the elders of the human race with Nua's approval. Feng Zichen himself didn't agree. Speaking of which, Feng Zichen was still a victim. If they hadn't forced him to get married, how could such a disaster have happened? In fact, Dijun's destruction of the human race was also an honor for the human race. These days, the only race that could make Dijun exterminate was the human race. Wasn't it an honor for the human race that the celestial emperor ordered to attack the human race? However, this honor required the flesh and blood of the human race. In the silence, Feng Zichen spoke. That's true. The monster race is powerful. They dominate the heavenly court and control Zhoshing. Even the saints have to give in to them. The human race is just a postnatal race. Our strength is still at the bottom of the primordial world, and is far from being comparable to them. If not for the care of the dragon race and the protection of Niwa, we would have been destroyed countless times. It's normal to be afraid of the monster race. Who isn't afraid of the monster race? At this point, Feng Zichen paused slightly and then said loudly, "But if we're afraid, will the monster race let us go?" "No. They will firmly carry out Dijun's order and slaughter the human race. Therefore, we have to fight. Even if we die, we have to die standing, not kneeling. Even if we can't hurt the muscles and bones of the monster race, we have to break a few of their teeth. Let them know that there are no cowards in the human race. Only then will we not waste our trip to the primordial world. Don't tell me you want to die kneeling." Everyone was silent, but Feng Zichen could not be silent. Everyone was in despair, but Feng Zichen could not be in despair. If he was like everyone else, then the human race would really be finished. That's right. Even if the monster race wants to destroy the human race, they have to pay the price. The human race has to fight to the end. The human race is not weaker than the human race. After being provoked by Feng Zichen, everyone swept away their previous decadence and roared loudly with red eyes. They looked like they wanted to fight to the death with the monster race. That's right. At this time, it's the moment of life and death for the human race. It's the time for us to be united and face the disaster together. Although the monster race is strong, why should the human race be afraid? At most we'll die. Feng Zichen was very satisfied with everyone's attitude. They were afraid before the battle. Was this the attitude that the human race should have? Only when they were not afraid of death could they show the true colors of the human race. Yes. Fight the monster race. Fight to protect the human race. What's there to be afraid of death? Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Influenced by Feng Zichen, everyone's blood was boiling. Cries of fighting to the death came out of their mouths, and their heroic spirit was undeniable. When the voice spread out of the human emperor palace, even Xian Ho seemed to be infected, and became more vigorous. This attitude made Feng Zichen, who was sitting at the top, even more satisfied. If the human race was like this, there was no need to worry that the human race would not prosper. Everyone, please calm down. When everyone's blood gradually cooled down, Feng Zichen raised his hand, pressed a few times and said, "Things are not as bad as we thought. After all, the untainted land is the territory of the witch race. How can the monster race come and go as they wish? Therefore, even if the demon race wants to destroy the human race, they won't send great overarching golden immortals. At most, they'll send some primordial unity golden immortals, and half-step great overarching experts. In this way, although the monster race's strength is still far beyond that of the human race, it will not be so difficult to deal with them. If the plan is right, the human race may be able to survive this calamity." When everyone calmed down, Feng Zichen continued to analyze. At this time, the witch race could not care less about the Tai Jingxian demons returning to the untainted land. But if the Daoyuo Jingxian demons came to the untainted land, they would die one by one. Did they really think that the witch race was weak? Daoyuo Jingxian was already the top battle strength of the two races. No one would let go of the opportunity to kill the other side's experts. Phew. It turns out that the demon god can't take action. Your Majesty, you didn't finish your words at once. You really scared us. Hearing that the demon god would not take action in this battle, everyone was obviously relieved. The reason why the monster race was powerful was because of the large number of Daoyuo Jingxian. To deal with the human race, the monster race only needed to send out hundreds of Daoyuo Jingxian to easily destroy the human race dozens of times. Everyone thought that it made sense. Without the Daoyuo Jingxian, why should the human race be afraid of the monster race? This was a crushing situation. It was impossible to rely on the Tai Jingxian demons to destroy the human race. It should be known that besides the 9 lords, the human race still had 4 Daoyuo Jingxian. And no matter how many Tai Jingxian there were, they would not be enough to kill the Daoyuo Jingxian. Of course, the array was an exception. Seeing the joy on everyone's faces, Feng Zichen knew what they were thinking and said helplessly. He could only say helplessly. If the Daoyuo Jingxian of the monster race can't take action, then the Daoyuo Jingxian of the human race can't take action either. Otherwise, we will completely enrage the monster race and make them attack the human race without regard for anything else. Then even if the human race is protected by the witch race, they will be destroyed by the monster race overnight. It was true that the monster race was wary of the witch race, but if they relied on their cultivation to slaughter the monster race's citizens on a large scale, they would be courting death. The monster race had 3,000 to 4,000 Daoyuo Jingxian. If they attacked the human race without regard for anything else, even the witch race would not be able to stop them. Feng Zichen would not be able to stop them either. Therefore, in this battle, they could only rely on the Tai Jingxian cultivators. Everyone's faces immediately turned bitter. To put it bluntly, the number of Tai Jingxian cultivators of the monster race was much greater than the number of all the immortals of the human race combined. However, this news was not too bad. After all, compared to facing the entire monster race, it was undoubtedly much easier to face only the Tai Jingxian cultivators of the monster race. This was also Feng Zichen's plan. First, he would make them feel despair, and then give everyone hope. If Feng Zichen had said from the beginning that he wanted everyone to face the Tai Jingxian of the monster race, they would definitely not be so full of fighting spirit now. He first raised the difficulty level to the maximum level to make everyone feel despair. Then he lowered the difficulty level to give them a glimmer of hope. This move would undoubtedly greatly increase their endurance, and it would also be easier to stimulate their fighting spirit. Now, it seemed that this move was very effective. Everyone was rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms, waiting for the battle with the monster race. In a battle of the same realm, the human race might not be weaker than the witch race. One had to know that the human race cultivated the Tao of the fiend gods, and they paid attention to bloodline atavism, awakening the innate bloodline and reversing the innate life form. Those who could cultivate to the Tai Jingxian had all transformed into innate life forms. Their bodies were extremely powerful, and they were on the same level as the monster race. If they really fought, it would depend on their own methods. The only thing that was more worrying was that the number of monster race experts was much greater than that of the human race. The monster race is powerful, and it's difficult for the human race to compete with them. Therefore, those who want to leave the human race now, please take the initiative to leave. Every race had people who were afraid of death, and the human race was no exception. What Feng Zichen wanted to do now was to make them leave the human race on their own accord, so as to avoid the trouble of cleaning them up in the future. As soon as he said that, the hall immediately fell silent. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. No one dared to speak, and they even held their breaths. These words were too harsh. Although he said that they would take the initiative to leave the human race, what he actually meant was that they would leave the human race. This was not a small matter. If things went wrong, the human race might be divided because of this. However, there were also a few bold ones who looked around in the crowd, wanting to see who was so afraid of death that they would betray the human race at this time of crisis. Feng Zichen waited for a while, but no one stepped forward, so he continued. If you take the initiative to come out now, we can still part on good terms. However, if you want to leave after the war breaks out, don't blame me for being ruthless. As he spoke, Feng Zichen's tone could not help but carry a trace of killing intent. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines and inexplicably shivered. This time, not long after Feng Zichen finished speaking, a few people showed hesitation. In the end, they gritted their teeth and flew out of the hall with a resolute look on their faces. You're courting death. Seeing these people leave, the people in the hall were so angry that they could not speak. There were even a few hot-tempered experts who could not hold back their anger and used their divine abilities to kill them. Stop! However, before the divine abilities that everyone used could hit the few people who escaped, they were casually blocked by Feng Zichen. He gently stroked his palm, and all the divine abilities disappeared. Of course, the few people who wanted to escape were also stopped by him. Fellow Taoists, I've already said what I wanted to say. Let's part on good terms. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. However, since you have already left the human race, the things of the human race have nothing to do with you. I won't ask you to compensate the human race for the price they paid to nurture you. Now, as long as you leave behind the things that belong to the human race, you can leave. Feng Zichen glanced at them indifferently and said, these people were really courting death. Did they really think that they could survive after leaving the human race? The primordial world was dangerous. Without the protection of a mighty figure, they would definitely become cannon fodder in the great calamity of heaven and earth. Every time the world was in turmoil, the ones who died the most were those innocent living beings. For example, after the lich and demon tribulation, the world would collapse. Those who had a backer could sit back and relax, while those who did not could only wait for death. Moreover, how could it be so easy to be a traitor? Feng Zichen wanted to take back everything except cultivation. For example, magic treasures, pills, luck, and so on. It was fine if they didn't have magic treasures, but without luck, they would be trampled to death by ferocious beasts when they went out. Your Majesty is right. The few of them looked at each other and gritted their teeth. At this point, they had no other choice. Feng Zichen had already called them fellow Taoists. This was completely cutting off their hopes of returning to the human race. The only thing they could do now was, there was only one way to go. With a ruthless heart, the few of them first threw out their magic treasures and storage spirit treasures. Then they severed their bloodlines and even destroyed their physical bodies that they had refined for many years. At the same time, Xian Hua trembled and took back the luck of the human race from their bodies. In this way, their connection with the human race was almost cut off. Is it worth it? One of them saw this scene and asked in a daze. After severing their bloodlines and destroying their physical bodies, even if they recovered, their strength would be greatly reduced. The price was heavy. Was it really worth it to pay such a price just to leave the race that gave birth to them? Unfortunately, he did not understand. For these people who were afraid of death, living was the most important thing. They could give up everything else. Your Majesty, we will take our leave. After doing all this, the few of them bowed to Feng Zichen and turned to leave. This time no one stopped them. Therefore they left easily. Your Majesty, please forgive us for taking our leave. Seeing that Feng Zichen really let those people go, many people secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They hurriedly got up and wanted to leave the human race. This time, there were dozens of people who stood out, several times more than before. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were burning with anger, wishing they could burn their bones and scatter their ashes. Chapter 454. What did these people want to do? Did they really not care about anything in order to live? If looks could kill? No. If Feng Zichen allowed them to attack, then these people would probably be stabbed into pieces by their looks. Fellow Taoists, please go ahead. Feng Zichen said indifferently. It was just a group of people who had died. There was no need to care. We will take our leave. After bowing again, this group of people, like the people before them, abandoned their magic treasures, severed their bloodlines, obliterated their bodies, and left the human race with nothing. Your Majesty, wouldn't it be too easy for them to let them go just like that? After no one left, someone among the people who stayed behind asked indignantly, as if they were very dissatisfied with Feng Zichen's decision. How could they be dissatisfied? These people fled at the last minute. They were clearly traitors to the human race. If they didn't kill them, how could the civilians be angry? If they were let go so easily and didn't know the rules, wouldn't it be encouraging everyone to escape? Human Emperor. What a mess. The hearts of the human race were going to be in chaos. Hehe. Feng Zichen only chuckled at everyone's dissatisfaction and didn't care too much. He understood everyone's worries. It was nothing more than his punishment being too light and easily disturbing people's hearts. But was his punishment really light? Everyone, there's no need to be angry. It's good that they left. These people's minds are not difficult. Leaving them in the human race is also a scourge. It's easy to shake the morale of the army. Now that they have been chased out, the The human race will have no unstable factors. They can unite and fight against the demon race together. Moreover, how can their relationship with the human race be broken so easily? Their lives were given to them by the human race. Since they have left the human race, they have to leave their lives behind. This is a natural karma that can only be eliminated by death. Therefore, these people have to go through reincarnation. Only in this way can they end the karma between them and the human race. The grace of giving birth to them was greater than the heavens. How could it be offset by bloodlines and bodies? Moreover, their cultivation methods, Tao divine abilities, and the resources they use for cultivation all came from the human race. What kind of karma was this? It wouldn't be enough to repay in a lifetime. So they wanted to leave? That was impossible. This karma was too heavy, and only death could resolve it. After all, death was the end of everything. If they left the humankind, these people would all die a violent death before long. This was karma. Do you really think karma is a joke? Even the saints were not willing to be tainted by it, so one could imagine how terrifying it was. This was the reason why Feng Zichen let them off so easily. They were going to die anyway, so there was no need to dirty their hands. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing if Feng Zichen was telling the truth. Everyone, please look. Feng Zichen knew that no one believed him. Smiling, he waved his sleeve and used the circular light technique, forming a huge circular mirror. The surface of the mirror was very clear, and it reflected everything within 10,000 miles around the human territory. Among them, there were many indistinct figures. They were the ones who had betrayed the human race. The reason why their figures were faintly discernible was because they had destroyed their physical bodies. Now they were only in the state of souls. Without a real physical body, how could they not be faintly discernible? What are you looking at? Everyone was a little puzzled. What did Feng Zichen want them to look at? How did these people escape? However, the speed of these people was indeed fast, as expected of those who were afraid of death. All their skills were focused on speed. In a short while, they had run out of the territory of the human race. Their speed was really good. However, what did it mean to just watch them escape? Just as everyone was puzzled, the scene changed. A black wind blew past, and those people did not even have time to cry out before their souls were crushed. Only their true spirits were left, and they were taken away by the power of reincarnation. Hiss, what is this? When everyone saw this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. What was that black wind? It actually destroyed the souls of dozens of Tai Jingxians so easily. It was too terrifying. It was really too terrifying. Even if these people's physical bodies were gone and their strength was much weaker than before, they knew that even if they took action, they would have to put in some effort and pay a heavy price if they wanted to kill these traitors. It would not be as easy as this black wind, to be able to destroy those traitors so easily. Even if they went themselves, they would not be able to end well. Could it be that the human emperor had taken action? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Feng Zichen suspiciously. Although the meaning was not clearly stated, as long as one was not blind, one could see the meaning. Was His Majesty dissatisfied with them and secretly killed them? Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence that they died just as His Majesty said that something would happen to them? Everyone, this has nothing to do with me. That black wind is called the black wind of nirvana. It is a strange power produced after the void is destroyed. It contains the power of nirvana. How should I describe its power? It is useless against Daoyuo Jingxian, but it can easily kill Tai Jingxian. Not to mention that they don't have physical bodies. Even if they were at their peak state, they wouldn't be able to withstand this wind. Shaking his head and smiling, Feng Zichen explained. The death of those traitors really had nothing to do with him. It was all karma. As early as when they decided to betray the human race, there was already a faint aura of death on their bodies. It was just that they were so focused on severing ties with the human race that they did not notice it. This was the calamity of death that blinded the soul. It made the consummate skill that cultivators relied on to survive, the sudden inspiration, completely ineffective. Really? Everyone was still a little skeptical. After all, this happened too coincidentally. Everyone with my ability, Crushing them is as easy as crushing ants. Why would I need to use such underhanded means? Moreover, everyone is a person who has seen his true nature and has become one with the Tao. How can you not see the simple principle of karma? When he said these words, Feng Zichen was also angry, and his words could not help but be a little harsh. Moreover, there was a hint of the charm of a Tao shout in his tone. Tao shout. Tao shout. This was the supreme magical power of the Xianmen sect. It turned sound into Tao sound and used the power of the Tao to shock people's hearts and make them see their true nature. Sure enough, as soon as Feng Zichen finished speaking, everyone suddenly shuddered. It was as if the fog in their hearts had been lifted, and they suddenly felt enlightened. Before the tribulation arrived, the tribulation aura had already been released. There was still some time before the demons slaughtered the humans, but the tribulation aura that filled the world had already arrived and began to confuse everyone's minds. Previously, the reason why these human experts suspected that it was Feng Zichen who did it was because they were bewitched by the tribulation aura and lost their basic judgment. Feng Zichen used the Tao shout to wake them up. Fortunately, the tribulation of the human race was far inferior to the tribulation of the shamans and demons. Otherwise, Feng Zichen would not be able to wake them up. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your advice. Everyone came back to their senses and immediately thanked Feng Zichen with cold sweat. With the tribulation aura around them, it would be difficult for them to survive the tribulation. It was extremely difficult for a normal person to transcend the tribulation. Moreover, they were people who had been invaded by the tribulation aura and lost their minds. The tribulation aura was too terrifying. If the tribulation aura did not affect their minds, many people would die in the primordial world during each great tribulation. Everyone, we have no way out. Feng Zichen did not let them see the fate of the traitors without a purpose. He wanted to tell everyone that it was useless to leave the human race. Even if he let them go, the heavens and earth would not let them go. Therefore, put away the thoughts that you should not have and prepare to fight to the death. Only death. After everyone woke up, their intelligence had recovered. Naturally, they could understand what Feng Zichen meant and express their stance on the spot. Very good, it's good that everyone has this ambition. The human race is fortunate to have everyone. Nodding, Feng Zichen was very satisfied with everyone's attitude. Regardless of whether they had really planned to fight the demons to the death or not, now they had no way out. They had to fight the demons to the end. By the way, how many human experts do we have outside? With a thought, Feng Zichen suddenly asked everyone. There were many human experts who had traveled outside over the years. Those who had returned to attend the wedding were only the majority of them. A small number continued to travel outside and did not return to the human race. About 300 to 400. A human elder from the Changming clan stepped forward and said. The Changming clan was an elder of the human race. With the cultivation of a half-step Daluo Jingxian, he was in charge of the Changming temple. He was very familiar with the human race who had traveled outside. Of course, the Changming clan did not have this name before. However, after he took charge of the Changming temple, the name was no longer important. He changed it to the Changming clan. 300 to 400. That's not a small number. Call them all back. It's time for them to contribute to the human race. Nodding, Feng Zichen said. 300 to 400 primordial immortals was not a small force at all. By the way, if any of them are unwilling to come back, there's no need to force them. Just chase them out of the human race. There's no need to care about them. In the end, Feng Zichen added. Those who did not want to repay the human race would have to wait for their retribution. Of course, if some of them had not received any favor from the human race since they were born, it was understandable that they did not repay the human race. The heavens were fair and would not kill the innocent. Yes, Your Majesty. The Changming clan received the order and hurried back to the Changming temple. The Changming temple stored the Changming lanterns of all the humans who had traveled outside. Naturally, they had a way to contact them. Everyone, the demons are too powerful for the human race to fight against. Therefore, we need to think carefully about how to fight this battle. With the internal conflict resolved, it was time to talk about how the human race would fight against the demons. Your Majesty, what do you suggest? The difference in strength was too great. The chances of the human race defeating the demons were too low. Therefore, they did not hope to defeat the demons. They only hoped to preserve the human race's strength as much as possible. Defend. Feng Zichen announced his strategy. Defend. Everyone was puzzled. That's right. That's right. Only defend and not attack. Feng Zichen nodded in affirmation. How do we defend? If the demons invaded, would the human race be able to defend against them with their strength alone? All the major cities are protected by the chaos formation. Therefore, I want all of you to guard the major cities and rely on the chaos formation to firmly block the demons' advance, and not let them take a step into the human race's territory. Feng Zichen had long planned how to fight against the demons. The human race's cities were built for this purpose. The location of these human cities was very particular. They formed a circle around the human race's territory, and formed the human race's first line of defense. If outsiders wanted to enter, they would have to break through this line of defense first. However, this line of defense was not so easy to break through. There was a chaos formation in the city. It was a supreme formation recorded in the chaos bead. It contained the true meaning of the Great Tao, and was the supreme formation of the space-time Tao. Even if the chaos formation set up by Feng Zichen was less than a billionth of the original, it was still one of the strongest formations in the primordial world, second only to the primordial world's three great formations. Moreover, the most powerful thing about the chaos formation was that it could distort space-time. Every city had a chaos formation. It seemed to disperse his power, but in fact it was not. The space-time that belonged to the chaos formation had long been folded. There seemed to be many, but in fact there was only one. In other words, there was only one chaos formation. It was the formation that protected the human Tao Imperial Court. The other chaos formations were all products of distorted space-time. They seemed to be in the major cities, but in fact they were still in the human Tao Imperial Court. Once these chaos formations were activated, space-time would overlap. Although everyone was in different places, they shared a set of formations. This meant that they could provide support at any time. If any side was attacked by the demon's main force, the human experts in other places could quickly provide support. No, they could not say that. It should be said that no matter where the demons attacked from, they would be facing all the human experts. In this way, unless the demons gathered all their forces to attack the humans at once, it would be difficult for them to break through the human race. This was one of the abilities of the chaos formation. It ignored space-time. This was much more advanced than teleportation formations. Unless a half-step primordial chaos Tao realm expert sealed space-time, no one could stop the power of the chaos formation. Next, it would depend on whether the demons plan to attack in batches, or decide the outcome in one battle. If the outcome was decided in one battle, this method would be useless. However, there was a high chance that the demons would not use this method, because the humans were too weak. It was not worth it for them to use this method. They would only use this method if they could not succeed after a long time. However, this was enough for the humans to hold on for a while. This method is not bad. But can the chaos formation block the demons' attacks? It was a good method, but everyone was worried about the power of the chaos formation. Usually they knew that the chaos formation was very strong, but they did not know how strong it was. After all, there were only a few famous connate formations in the primordial world. There was no one called the chaos formation. You don't have to worry about that. Although the chaos formation is not famous, I comprehended it from the inheritance of the great Taoist priests. It is a first-class connate formation in the primordial world. It is extremely powerful and can be ranked in the top 10 of the primordial world's formations. It should be enough to resist the demons. Of course, he could not tell the true origin of the chaos formation. Feng Zichen could only push his origin to Pangu. After all, he was the descendant of Pangu. It was normal for him to obtain an extremely powerful connate formation. So it's the formation passed down by the great Taoist priests. Then the humans have nothing to worry about. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard that. They did not expect the chaos formation to have such a shocking origin. Chapter 455. That was Pengu, the founder of the primordial world, a supreme existence. Just thinking about it, one would know how extraordinary the array formation that he had left behind was. For a moment, everyone's confidence increased greatly. This was also the reason why Feng Zichen used the name of Pengu. Not only did he perfectly explain the origin of the chaos array, but he also gave everyone a lot of confidence. Then, Your Majesty, we will take our leave first. While there is still some time before the demons attack, we can familiarize ourselves with the chaos array. With a plan in mind, everyone stood up and was about to leave. The city lords were very familiar with the chaos array, but they had been traveling outside all year round, and were not familiar with it. Since there was still some time, they might as well practice the array formation properly, so that they would not be flustered and make mistakes. There's no rush. The most important thing now is to migrate the clansmen outside the ancestral land. If the demons invade the human race, they will definitely send out Tai Jingxian. In other words, this great calamity of the human race requires all the Tai Jingxian of the human race to block it. And the clansmen whose cultivation is lower than Tai Jingxian are not only useless in this great calamity, but they are also a burden. Therefore, I plan to migrate all the clansmen below the Tai Jingxian realm to the Imperial Court of Human Tao. If you are defeated by the demons, I will gather all the strength of the human race and fight the demons to the death in the Imperial Court of Human Tao. This was the second line of defense set up by Feng Zichen. He gathered all the clansmen of the human race who had not reached the Tai Jingxian realm to the Imperial Court of Human Tao. If the Tai Jingxian of the human race could not block the demons' attack, then he would use the power of the human race to activate the Imperial Court of Human Tao and fight the demons to the death. How powerful would the combined power of the entire human race be? Perhaps they would be able to activate the power of the Imperial Court of Human Tao, a Khanate supreme treasure. At that time, even if they could not block the demons' attack, they would leave an indelible wound on the demons. However, Feng Zichen only had one chance to strike. After this strike, he would be torn to pieces by the furious Di Jun. This was a desperate move. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Feng Zichen was unwilling to use it. After this strike, no matter if it was a success or failure, the age of shamans and demons would come to an end. The fall of civilization, the loss of inheritance, the death of all the experts, the near extinction of the human race, and the return of the human race to the primitive era, was probably the real situation of the human race at that time. Your Majesty is right. After our clansmen have retreated, we can completely let go of our hands and feet, and fight the demon clan with all our strength. You don't have to take care of your clansmen, which will affect your combat power. Everyone agreed with Feng Zichen's suggestion. After their clansmen left, they no longer had anything to worry about. Thus, they were able to use a lot more methods. However, I wonder how many Tai Jingxian the demons will send? This was the only thing that everyone was worried about. After all, there were too many Tai Jingxian in the demon race. There were so many that all the immortals of the human race combined were not as many as them. If the demon race sent out tens of thousands of Tai Jingxian, they could rely on the chaos array to resist. However, if the demon race sent hundreds of thousands of Tai Jingxian, then the human race would be in danger. Tens of thousands of Tai Jingxian working together to set up a Khanate array could make the Daoyuo Jingxian nurse a grudge, let alone hundreds of thousands of them. Everyone, don't worry too much. It's still the same thing. The primordial world is the territory of the shamans. It's definitely not a place where the demon race can do whatever they want. They can send people, but they definitely won't send too many. Otherwise, if they anger the shamans, they'll kill as many as they send. Even if the demon race has a lot of business, they won't be able to bear this price. According to my calculations, the number of Tai Jingxian sent by the demon race will not exceed 10 times that of the human race's Tai Jingxian. If there are more, they will be targeted by the shamans. Therefore, although this tribulation is difficult, it's not impossible for the human race to get through it. Feng Zichen analyzed calmly to the crowd. If hundreds of thousands of Tai Jingxian entered the primordial world aggressively, it was hard to say whether they would attack the human race or the shamans. After all, Was it necessary to mobilize so many people to deal with a small human race? Therefore, the shamans would never allow hundreds of thousands of Tai Jinxian to enter the primordial world. The demon race would not be so stupid as to send so many demons over. Of course, if the demon race really sent so many demons over, the shamans would not mind killing them all. In this way, they could weaken the strength of the demon race. Why not? That's true. Although the difference of 10 times is huge, if we risk our lives, we might still have a chance. After Feng Zichen's analysis, everyone understood the key points. Although their expressions were still very serious, they were somewhat relieved. All right, the war is imminent. I won't keep you here. Go and prepare. However, before that, you can send your family members to the ancestral land. Seeing that everything had been arranged, Feng Zichen waved his hand and signaled for everyone to leave. However, before everyone left, he asked everyone to send their family members to the ancestral land. They were not kept as hostages, but to protect them. No matter what, the human race was a race created by goddess Nuwa. No matter how strong the demon race was, they had to leave her with dignity. They did not dare to do everything and completely destroy the human race. Therefore, the demon race would definitely leave a chance for the human race. And that chance of survival could only be the shore of the East Sea, the ancestral land of the human race. After all, there was a barrier set up by goddess Nuwa there. No matter how arrogant the demon race was, they did not dare to attack this place. Not every demon was Dijun, and was not afraid of goddess Nuwa's revenge. Feng Zichen asked everyone to send their family members to the ancestral land to tell everyone. Even if the human Dao imperial court was broken through by the demon race and the human race suffered a destructive blow, their family members would still be fine and would still live well. This was to comfort their hearts. It was also a reward for them to protect the human race with their lives. The human race never mistreated those who had contributed. Your Majesty, the ancestral land has its own rules. How can it be broken because of us? Besides, the human race gave birth to me and raised me. We are willing to die for them. Your Majesty, why do you have to do this? Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed and they said anxiously. Many years ago, the human clan had set up a rule. Except for the first generation of the human clan, and the golden immortals of the great all-embracing heaven, any human clan who had cultivated the immortal Tao was not allowed to stay in the ancestral land for long. Now those who lived in the ancestral land, other than mortals who could not cultivate, were cultivators who had not cultivated the immortal Tao. Among them, most of them were young people. And these young people were the future of the human race. The reason why this rule was set was that they had no choice. The resources of the ancestral land were limited, and could not support too many cultivators. As for sky immortals, mystic immortals, and golden immortals, how much Khanate Chi did these high-level cultivators need every day? It would not be long before the ancestral land was sucked dry. As for cultivators who had not cultivated the immortal Tao, the amount of Khanate Chi they could breathe in every day was limited. No matter how much they breathed in, the ancestral land could support it. There was no need to worry about being sucked dry. The amount of Khanate Chi that 1,000,000 young spirit cultivators breathed in a year could not compare to the amount that a Tai Jinxian could breathe in a day. The difference was so great. Therefore, the human race would not allow their clansmen who had cultivated the immortal Tao to stay in the ancestral land for long. But now Feng Zichen had let everyone's relatives return to the ancestral land. It was obviously against the rules of the human race. One had to know that everyone present was a Tai Jinxian. It was nothing in the primordial world, but in the human race, they were the upper echelons. Their relatives were not as powerful as them, but they were also mystic immortals and golden immortals. Obviously, they were not qualified to enter the ancestral land. However, Feng Zichen still did it. It was not an exaggeration to say that fighting with the demons was a close shave. After the Great Tribulation, it would be good if dozens of people could survive among the thousands of people present. It could be said that they were all prepared to die in the battle with the demons. Therefore, how could Feng Zichen let them be bitterly disappointed? At the very least, he had to leave a trace of their bloodline to prove that they had been to the primordial world before. There's no need to say more. I've made up my mind. You are all heroes of the human race. How can the human race let you bleed and cry? Feng Zichen waved his hand to interrupt everyone and said firmly, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Everyone hesitated for a moment. Their wills, which were not firm to begin with, were finally shaken. They replied in unison. Everyone had selfish motives, and they were no exception. They were willing to die for the human race, but they did not want their descendants and relatives to die in the hands of the demons like them. It could be said that Feng Zichen's order had struck a chord with them. It was only because of the rules of the human race that they subconsciously refused. However, since Feng Zichen was willing to break the rules for them, they would not insist on refusing. Okay. The future of the human race is entrusted to you. Standing up, Feng Zichen bowed to everyone and said, "In this battle, Daluo Jingxian of the demon race would not make a move. Therefore, he could not make a move. The allies of the human race could not make a move either. All the heavy responsibilities were on the shoulders of these Tai Jingxian. Whether they could resist the attack of the demons determined the future of the human race. Therefore, they shouldered the future of the human race. They deserved the respect of Feng Zichen and all the humans. This was the glory that they had exchanged with their lives. Your Majesty, take care. We are leaving." In the end, they said something to Feng Zichen and everyone left. The human race is finished. After everyone left, Feng Zichen was silent for a long time, before he suddenly shouted sadly. His eyes were filled with tears that dripped down. As long as they blocked the attack of the demons, the human race would have a chance to breathe? The demons would only send out Tai Jingxian? Dijun would not make a move? How was this possible? All of this was a lie made up by Feng Zichen. It would not make them despair. But he knew in his heart, the human race was really finished. Even if Empress Nuwa made a move, she would not be able to save the human race. The demons would definitely destroy the human race. Because Feng Zichen discovered the reason why the demons would definitely destroy the human race. He, who came from the future, knew very well the reason why the demons slaughtered the human race. It was to refine the witch-killing sword. The witch-killing sword. As the name suggested, this was a witch-killing sword. It was specially used by Dijun to deal with the ancestral sorcerer. As everyone knew, the bodies of the 12 ancestral sorcerer were the best in the untainted land. They were even stronger than some innate spiritual treasures. Apart from the top innate spiritual treasures and innate supreme treasures, there were almost no weapons in the untainted land that could hurt their bodies. Ordinary innate spiritual treasures could not even leave a white mark on their bodies. Among the demons, only the Bell of Chaos of the Eastern Emperor Tai could cause fatal damage to the bodies of the ancestral sorcerer. The rest of the innate spiritual treasures could only be said to be better than nothing. This was also what troubled Dijun. If the 12 ancestral sorcerer did not have such a strong body, they would have been defeated by him one by one. However, the witch-killing sword was different. This divine sword was refined from the flesh and blood of countless clansmen of the human race. It had a strong restraining effect on the bodies of the ancestral sorcerer. The body of the ancestral sorcerer, which was comparable to an innate spiritual treasure, was like a piece of paper in front of the witch-killing sword. It would simply shatter with a touch. Since he knew this, Feng Zichen naturally had to find the reason. Why did the divine sword refined from the flesh and blood of the human race have such a strong restraining effect on the ancestral sorcerer? As long as he figured this out and avoided it, he might be able to avoid the disaster of the human race. Feng Zichen studied for a long time, but did not find out why the blood of the human race could restrain the body of the ancestral sorcerer. However, not long after he became the great Taoist priests, he suddenly understood. With the support of the myriad Tao, he finally found the reason why the blood of the human race could restrain the body of the ancestral sorcerer. However, it was this discovery that made him feel desperate. He believed that the demon race would never let the human race go. In itself, the blood of the human race did not have the power to restrain the body of the ancestral sorcerer. However, the human race was a race created by the Nuwa. In the process of creation, The Nuwa integrated her own essence and blood into the human race. This was the reason why the blood of the human race could restrain the body of the ancestral sorcerer. The blood of a saint was extraordinary. It was the essence of creation, the source of heaven and earth, and carried the power of the way of heaven. No matter how strong the body of the ancestral sorcerer was, how could it withstand the power of the way of heaven? In addition, the way of heaven wanted to kill the ancestral sorcerer. Their bodies naturally could not withstand the sharpness of the witch-slaughtering sword. It was normal for them to die. When the demons discovered this, they would definitely attack the human race. That was because the saints did not dare to provoke them, but the human race could. After all, the human race was too weak. Could the demons discover it? They would definitely do so. That was because even if the demons could not discover it, the way of heaven would definitely let them discover it. The way of heaven would definitely not miss such an opportunity to weaken the strength of the lich. And among them, the human race was just a sacrifice. No one would care. The Nuwa bloodline had been passed down from generation to generation in the human race. It had long become extremely thin. It was definitely not enough to refine the witch-slaughtering sword. Fortunately, there were enough humans. If the quality was not enough, the quantity would make up for it. Slaughtering the entire human race would definitely be able to gather the Nuwa bloodline needed to refine the witch-slaughtering sword. That was the reason why the demons slaughtered humans. As for whether this would offend the Nuwa, it was not important. To the demons, destroying the witch race was the most important thing. For this, they would not hesitate to pay any price. So what if he offended a weak saint? Hehe. How ironic. What a great irony. The Nuwa bloodline that the human race is most proud of has actually become the human race's greatest death sentence. It's simply laughable. In the middle of the hall, Feng Zichen sat there paralyzed and laughed self-deprecatingly. Chapter 456. As the only postnatal race in the primordial world, it was the greatest pride of the human race to be able to have a relationship with the Nuwa. However, this had become the source of their extermination. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? No, it was not just the Nuwa bloodline. There was also the path of the God Fiend. This achievement that made Feng Zichen extremely proud was also the cultivation path that allowed the human race to rise. At this moment, it had become another culprit for the extermination of the human race. The domineering ability of awakening the bloodline allowed the Nuwa bloodline, which should have been worn down with the passage of time, to revive in the human race's body and become stronger. Believe. Compared to Feng Zichen's shaman-slaying sword in his previous life, the shaman-slaying sword in this life would be even more powerful. And this would also strengthen the demon race's determination to destroy the human race. Since they had already offended them, what was the point of keeping the human race? Waiting for them to take revenge in the future? The demons still understood the principle of eliminating the roots of the problem. Moreover, the human race was not as simple as they seemed on the surface. Although they were a postnatal race, they had sacred blood flowing in their bodies. In terms of potential, many races of the demon race could not compare to them. In addition, there was a human emperor who would definitely become the primordial chaos Daoyuo Jinxian. As long as the human race was given enough time, they might become a huge threat to the demon race. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for public or private reasons, the human race had to be exterminated. After Feng Zichen attained the Tao, together with the Nuwa, the human race had 2 saint-level combat strength. Then, he heard that the reason why the Grand Pure One was able to attain the Tao had a lot to do with the human race. His only disciple was even from the human race. According to this calculation, the human race had 3 saint-level combat strength. It could be said that they were even stronger than the demon race. Thinking of this, the human race had to be exterminated. To a certain extent, everything that Feng Zichen had done was making a wedding dress for the demon race. As long as the strength of the human race did not surpass that of the demon race, the stronger the human race was, the stronger the power of the shaman-slaying sword would be. How could the demon race not be happy? From this point of view, It would not be an exaggeration to say that Feng Zichen's efforts were all for the benefit of the demon race. However, there were two sides to every coin. One couldn't just look at it from one side. Whether Feng Zichen worked hard or not, the human race would be exterminated by the demon race. However, with Feng Zichen's efforts, although the outcome did not change, the process had changed. At the very least, the human clan had once been mighty in the untainted land for a period of time. They were not completely powerless in the face of the demon clan. They also left some hope for the future, and did not completely lose their inheritance. In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen laughed at himself for a while. He suppressed the sadness in his heart and all the negative emotions, allowing himself to regain his composure. The human warriors had already gone to the front line to meet the enemy with the determination to die. As the human emperor, he could not stay idle. It was time for him to fight for the future of the human race. World passage open for me. After calming his mind, Feng Zichen came to the chaos bead and mobilized all his strength. He followed the roots of the world tree and blasted towards the 3,000 sectors. He wanted to open a passage to the 3,000 sectors and send the geniuses of the human clan into it, leaving a seed of hope for the human clan. These people who entered the 3,000 sectors would become the pillars for the human clan to dominate the untainted land in the distant future. They were also the key to whether the human clan could escape the control of the saints in the future and become the real protagonists of the untainted land. There was a saying in the art of war: those who do not plan for all the world will not be able to plan for a moment. Those who do not plan for the whole world will not be able to plan for a region. What Feng Zichen wanted to do now was to lay the foundation for the human clan. If the human clan wanted to become the overlord of the untainted land, it would not be possible to rely on him alone. It would require the joint efforts of countless experts. Just like the shaman and demon clan, if there were no experts like Dijun and Tai, they would still be the top forces in the untainted land. However, if the human clan did not have Feng Zichen, their strength would directly fall from the upper level of the untainted land to the bottom of the untainted land. The difference was unimaginable. That was the disadvantage of relying on one person to support a clan. Once something happened to the strongest person, the entire clan would be in trouble. They would not have the ability to bear any risks. It was also a true reflection of the current situation of the human clan. There were low-level cultivators and top-notch experts, but there were none in the middle or high-level cultivators. Therefore, if the human clan wanted to become stronger, they had to reverse this situation. However, there was no time now. They could only place their hopes on the future. Feng Zichen sent his clansmen into the 3,000 sectors to set up the future. That was a plan that he had set many years ago. Now he had finally begun to implement it. Unfortunately, there were still flaws in this plan. Its perfection was what Feng Zichen thought was perfect. It was not truly perfect. It still had all sorts of flaws. However, Feng Zichen could not discover them. There was a limit to an individual's wisdom. Only by gathering everyone's wisdom and combining everyone's wisdom could they formulate a relatively perfect plan. However, Feng Zichen could not announce this matter. This plan involved the future protagonist of the untainted land and the plans of many saints. The impact was too great. Once it was said, it would definitely be sensed by the saints and produce inexplicable variables. Therefore, this matter had to be kept secret. Even if he knew that the plan he had made might have imperfections, Feng Zichen could not discuss it with others. As for whether this plan could succeed, he could only place his hopes on the illusory future. Feng Zichen was not omniscient and omnipotent. What he could do was to do his best to facilitate this matter. As for the result, it still depended on whether the fire seeds that went to the 3,000 sectors were hardworking enough. Everything depended on human effort. Humans could conquer nature. That was the philosophy of the human clan. And it was also the inheritance that the human clan would never lose. If those fire seeds could implement this philosophy after going to the 3,000 sectors, they would either die a horrible death or achieve shocking achievements. Everything depended on them. Rumble. Under the roots of the world tree, The mysterious and unknown void trembled violently under Feng Zichen's crazy attacks. As the void trembled, strange scenes appeared one after another. That's right, these strange scenes were the projections of the 3,000 sectors. They were hidden in the unknown void, silently evolving, mysterious and unfathomable. However, after the appearance of the World Tree, its roots were connected to the endless dimensions and established a connection with these worlds, which also allowed Feng Zichen to find their traces. Originally, even if Feng Zichen found the traces of the 3,000 sectors, it was impossible for him to enter them. However, with the growth of the World Tree, the 3,000 sectors also benefited, and the speed of its development was greatly accelerated. This formed a karma with Feng Zichen. With this karma, Feng Zichen could send some people into the 3,000 sectors. Of course, he could not enter by himself. With Feng Zichen's strength, if he could enter the 3,000 sectors, he could be said to be an invincible existence. Everything in the world could be asked for, and no one could resist. This would undoubtedly be a devastating blow to the 3,000 sectors that were developing. Therefore, the heavenly axiom would never allow such a thing to happen. Unless the 3,000 sectors really appeared, otherwise cultivators of the golden immortal realm and above would not be able to enter. According to this rule, only cultivators below the golden immortal realm would be able to enter the 3,000 sectors this time. A good opportunity. Seeing the 3,000 sectors appear one after another, Feng Zichen knew that after so many years of growth, the World Tree already had enough ability to open up the passage to the 3,000 sectors. Now, all that was left was the best effort. Chaos Bead, Hongming Daozhong Go. Without hesitation, Feng Zichen directly activated the Chaos Bead and Hongming Daozhong, the two most powerful spirit treasures that he had. He activated their power with all his strength and blasted towards the 3,000 sectors. At the same time, the World Tree's body began to emit a bright light. Mysterious patterns appeared, and endless runes were born. A vast power descended, and the roots of the World Tree stood up one by one, holding up the endless void. Rumble. The law of chaos covered time and space, destroying everything and returning everything to chaos. The law of Hongming evolved and re-established order. In the void of chaos, passages to the 3,000 sectors were built. The World Tree stretched out its thick roots and probed into the passages, releasing the power of the world to maintain the stability of the passages. With the efforts of the Chaos Bead, Hongming Daozhong, and the World Tree, the 3,000 sectors were built. Like a black hole, they floated in front of Feng Zichen. Vitality. This is where the hope of the human race lies. Looking at these passages, even with Feng Zichen's current state of mind, he was slightly excited. Whether the human race could dominate the untainted land, the 3,000 sectors behind these passages was the most crucial step. As the owner of the World Tree, although Feng Zichen could not enter the 3,000 sectors, he could observe the development of these worlds through the World Tree's perspective. So many years had passed, and he already knew almost everything about the 3,000 sectors. As the associated worlds of the untainted land, although the 3,000 sectors and the untainted land were of the same origin, the laws in the world were completely different. The difference was reflected in the difference in cultivation civilization. For example, the cultivation civilization of magic, fighting energy, qi, martial soul, and so on was completely different from the untainted land. These civilizations did not belong to the immortal path, nor did they belong to the demonic path, nor was it the Tao of the Archean era. This was the Tao of the Chaos Demon God. After the 3,000 Chaos Demon Gods were killed by Pengu, most of their origins were integrated into the new untainted land, creating the current glory of the untainted land. However, there was also a small part of the origins that did not integrate into the untainted land. Instead, it integrated with the chaos fragments produced when Pengu opened up the untainted land, forming strange worlds. These worlds were born from the untainted land, and could be considered as his associated worlds. They were the predecessors of the 3,000 sectors. The untainted land gathered the 3,000 laws, so it was very tolerant. Various civilizations bloomed, and there were many cultivation systems, giving birth to countless experts. Chapter 457. Among them, there were two supreme great Taos, the immortal Tao and the demonic Tao. But the 3,000 sectors were different. Each sector corresponded to a chaos fiend god, and it was the embodiment of their Tao. This was a world that the great Tao could not bear to see the chaos fiend god's inheritance being lost. Of course, this was also a backup plan left by the great Tao for the resurrection of the chaos fiend god. After these worlds were developed to a certain extent, the chaos fiend god could use this to return and save countless years of recovery time. He could return to his peak state in one step. He might even go further. After all, he was the son of the great Tao, the most noble existence in the chaos, and he had the protection of the great Tao. How could the great Tao watch them die? It would definitely arrange a way out for them. Speaking of which, this plan was inspired by Pangu when he opened up the primordial world. Pangu opened up the primordial world to verify his own great Tao in order to break through to a higher realm. When the great Tao saw this, it copied and used this method on the chaos fiend god to leave a way out for them. It had to be said that the great Tao was really sloppy. However, the chaos fiend god had died, and most of his origin had been devoured by the primordial world, becoming resources for Panga's advancement. Only a part of the origin was left to evolve the world, and its potential was limited. It was far from reaching the achievements of the primordial world. Therefore, the chaos fiend god might be able to recover because of this, but he would never be able to reach the achievements of Pangu. His innate conditions were too poor. Moreover, the 3,000 sectors were born from the chaos fiend god's Tao. Their attributes were relatively monotonous, and the civilizations born were relatively monotonous. They were far from the brilliance and glory of the primordial world. Of course, monotonous also had its advantages. At the end of a Tao, the cultivation civilization born would also have its own characteristics. The Western myths and legends that Feng Zichen heard of in the future, magic, battle chi, angels, Mount Olympus, and so on, all originated from these sectors. There were 3,000 worlds, 3,000 different Taos, countless cultivation civilizations, and all kinds of strange races. Each had their own characteristics. It could be said that there was nothing you couldn't find. Among them, there was no lack of worlds similar to the primordial world. It was like a projection of the primordial world, but its strength was countless times weaker and unusually magical. Refine. Collecting his thoughts, Feng Zichen cast his magical power and ignited the fire of yin and yang. He took out pieces of chaos stones he found in the chaos outside the realm, and refined them into ancient portals, fusing them with the void passage floating in front of him. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. 3,000 ancient and profound doors stood in front of Feng Zichen. This was a realm gate. As the name suggests, this was the gateway to the great wide world. After all, the void passage was not very stable. It was safer to turn them into reality. Furthermore, refining the door was equivalent to locking onto the location of the Great Thousand Realms. It was useless now. However, when the Great Wide World opened up in the future, it would be very useful. It would be equivalent to taking the initiative in advance. One step ahead, every step ahead. There were many benefits to this. Go! Feng Zichen swung his sleeve. The void trembled and a turbulent current appeared. It carried the 3,000 world gates, and arrived at a top-level grotto heaven. It was Zichen's grotto heaven. Rumble. The world gates descended from the sky and fell into Zichen's grotto heaven. They disappeared into the void. The passage to the 3,000 great wide worlds was ready. However, choosing who to enter had always been a headache for Feng Zichen. It was unfair no matter who he chose. Originally, he had planned to choose the human prodigy to enter the great wide world. After all, the better the talent, the greater the achievements. It was safer to choose the prodigy to enter. Although this was unfair, the world was like this. There was no fairness. Moreover, it was customary to give preferential treatment to the talented clansmen. It was the same for all the clans in the primordial world. There was nothing unfair about it. It would be problematic if he did not do so. However, at the last moment, Feng Zichen changed his mind. Would the prodigy that he thought of still be a prodigy after leaving the primordial world? Moreover, Would the prodigy of the primordial world not be acclimatized after going to the great wide world? Of course, these were all Feng Zichen's random thoughts. It was unknown if they were true or not. What really made him change his mind was that he suddenly thought of a problem. The reason why a prodigy was not only because of his extraordinary talent, but also because of his amazing luck. What was a prodigy? A prodigy. Such people were born with the favor of heaven and earth. They had extraordinary talent and luck that made others jealous. To others, encountering treasures while out in the open, misfortune turning into fortune, and so on, these were rare fortuitous encounters. But to the heavens chosen, these were common occurrences. Otherwise, how could they live up to the title of a prodigy? That was the problem. Their luck was given to them by the primordial world. However, if they left the primordial world and went to the great wide world, who knew if they would still have this luck? If they did, it would be a happy ending. If not, wouldn't they be courting death? To the great wide world, they were outsiders and would definitely be targeted by the will of heaven and earth. If they did not have luck, one could imagine how dangerous it would be. Although the great wide world and the primordial world came from the same source, their luck was theoretically connected. But now the 3,000 great wide worlds were not connected to the primordial world, right? Each of them formed their own system, and might not recognize the luck of the primordial world. Moreover, to put it bluntly, prodigies were only favored by a wisp of the will of heaven and earth. They might have great potential in a small place, but in the entire primordial world, they were nothing. That was because the main character of this world would always be the connate godfiends. They were the existences that were truly favored by the heavenly Tao. No matter how strong a prodigy was, he could not compare to a connate godfiend. If a connate godfiend went to the great wide world, he would definitely be protected by the heavenly Tao. However, a prodigy might not be so. He had to wait until the passage between the primordial world and the great wide world was completely opened and connected. Only then could a prodigy enjoy the same treatment as the primordial world in the great wide world. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen hesitated. He planned to change the selection method. He moved the 3,000 world gates into Zichen's grotto heaven and hid in the void. He let all the human cultivators who had not become golden immortals go and search. This way, everyone would rely on their own opportunities, and it would be fair. Moreover, there was another benefit to choosing this way. The great wide world they chose would definitely be the most compatible with them. There would be opportunities waiting for them inside. Otherwise, they would not be able to find the corresponding great wide world. Everything is ready. Let's begin. With a thought, Feng Zichen's spiritual will surged out and enveloped the entire human territory. In the next moment, all the human cultivators who had not become golden immortals disappeared on the spot. They were pulled into an unknown void by Feng Zichen. The great Taoist priests were that strong. What is this place? When they came back to their senses, everyone realized that the environment around them had suddenly changed. It was as if they were in a mysterious void. They could not help but feel terrified. When they looked again, the faces around them were all familiar humans. This made them even more terrified. Who could kidnap all of them in the human territory without anyone noticing? Could it be that? Was it a powerful expert of the demon clan who had made a move? Doubt, fear, nervousness, uneasiness, and a series of negative emotions spread in everyone's hearts. Those who were timid had already begun to tremble all over, and could not help but break out in cold sweat. There were even some who knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. It was simply a disgrace to the human clan. Of course, there were also some who performed well. After the initial doubt and fear, they immediately calmed down and secretly looked around to find an opportunity to escape. They were promising talents. Feng Zichen did not appear. Instead, he watched all of this coldly. When he saw those who were nervous, he was expressionless. When he saw those who knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, he showed a look of disgust. When he saw those who calmly analyzed, he secretly nodded and was very satisfied. In just a moment, he had seen the performance of everyone present. Then he waved his hand and sent those nervous clansmen back to their original place. If one wanted to become an expert, one had to have a strong Tao heart. If one did not have it, no matter how talented one was, one's achievements would be limited. Obviously, these people were not qualified and had been filtered out by Feng Zichen. After all, there were too many human cultivators below the golden immortal realm. There were so many that Zichen's grotto heaven could not accommodate them. If he did not eliminate a batch in advance and let them try batch by batch, he did not know how much time it would take. After that, Feng Zichen waved his hand again and sent those clansmen who knelt on the ground and begged for mercy to the hunting team. It was considered to be giving them a last chance. In order to train his clansmen, Feng Zichen attracted many ferocious beasts in the human territory. Now that the human clan was facing the calamity of extermination, in order to maintain stability, he had to eliminate all unstable factors. Naturally, these ferocious beasts could not be left alive. Everyone made mistakes. This time, Feng Zichen chose to forgive them, but he could not let them have an easy time. Hunting the ferocious beasts was their punishment. Feng Zichen had already ordered that no one was allowed to help them, and let them hunt the ferocious beasts with their own abilities. If they could survive, they would become qualified human warriors. If they could not survive, they could only blame their bad luck. What could they do about it? All of you are good. After sending away the two groups of people with a flip of his hand, Feng Zichen said to the remaining people. At this time, those who could still stay here were all people with a firm Tao heart and extraordinary wisdom. When faced with sudden danger, they would not panic. Instead, they could quickly calm down. Only such people could live for a long time in troubled times. This was also the reason why Feng Zichen asked them to stay. Greetings, Your Majesty. A familiar voice rang out. Everyone instantly recognized the origin of the person who spoke and hurriedly bowed. The human emperor. The supreme ruler of the human clan. No need for formalities. I called you here today because I have an opportunity for you. Feng Zichen stretched out his hand and lifted everyone up. He glanced at them and said lightly. Chapter 458. Opportunity. Hearing this, everyone could not help but feel a little excited. With the status of the human emperor, how extraordinary would it be to say that it was an opportunity? Perhaps, whether they could prove their Tao in the future would depend on this opportunity. Thinking of this, everyone cheered up. They bowed to Feng Zichen again and said in unison, Your Majesty, please tell us what to do. After that, they did not get up and looked at Feng Zichen eagerly, waiting for him to give them the opportunity. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen could not help but laugh and sigh. Unknowingly, he had become an existence that all living beings looked up to. Any random action of his could change the fate of countless people. He could even affect the future of the untainted land. It felt so good to be looked up to. The power of authority was so wonderful. No wonder so many people worked so hard for it. To be honest, Feng Zichen was a little addicted to this feeling. Wasn't this the purpose of cultivating so hard? Cultivating was to change one's fate and become a man above all others. Of course, being addicted to it was one thing. Feng Zichen would not be influenced by this feeling. True strength lay in completely dominating one's own power, not being dominated by it. Well, the opportunity is in Zichen's cave. Whether you can find it or not depends on your own luck. Putting away his thoughts, Feng Zichen did not want to talk more. With a wave of his sleeve, he threw these people into Zichen's cave. Now, after Feng Zichen had eliminated 2 batches of people in a row, there were less than 1 in 10,000 human cultivators left. There were about 1 million of them left. Zichen's cave could still accommodate such a small number of people. Zichen's cave. Rays of clear light descended from the sky and turned into human figures. They stood in the void and looked around curiously. Zichen's cave was not unfamiliar to them. Or rather, it should be said that all humans were familiar with it. Because all humans had to come to Zichen's cave to cultivate for a period of time, before they became immortals. This was a tradition of the human race. Because they were familiar with Zichen's grotto heaven. These people were the most familiar with what kind of opportunities there were. The greatest opportunity in this place was the center of the grotto heaven, the 5 elements creation pool on Ziwei Mountain. Legend has it that the 5 elements creation pool was set up by the human sovereign when he was young. It was born at the same time as Zichen's grotto heaven, and was favored by the heavenly Tao. Once it was born, it was a high-grade connate merit spiritual treasure, a precious treasure of the celestial demon Tao. Of course, top grade was a thing of the past. After so many years of development, the path of the gods and devils had become more and more prosperous. Correspondingly, the 5 elements creation pool had also improved along with it. It had long become a supreme grade connate merit spirit treasure, and its power had increased greatly. The offensive power of the 5 elements creation pool was not very strong. It was a supportive connate numinous treasure that could continuously produce creation spirit liquid to cleanse the meridians of humans, improve their physique, and enhance their talent. The 5 elements creation pool had contributed greatly to the human race's success today. It had created countless geniuses for the human race. Moreover, this was not the most important thing about the 5 elements creation pool. Its greatest use was to help one go against the connate heavens and become a connate godfiend. This was a heaven-defying opportunity. Just this point alone had saved one countless years of bitter cultivation. The 5 elements creation pool was located on Ziwei Mountain. It could receive chaos yuan qi from above, draw upon the heavenly cycle stellar force from the middle, and absorb earth vein qi from below. Just like that, millions of years had passed and countless fortunes had been accumulated. Even an ordinary person could become a connate life form after soaking in the creation pool. If all of this was used to help one person, it would not be difficult to transform them into a connate godfiend. It should be noted that humans usually use the creation spiritual liquid by the drop. It was impossible for them to soak in the pool. However, the situation was different now. The human race was about to be wiped out. There was no point in keeping these things. It was better to use them to strengthen the human race than to leave them here to collect dust. Everyone had obviously thought of this. After some thought, they all flew towards Ziwei Mountain. Unfortunately, Ziwei Mountain was not so easy to climb. The higher one went, the greater the pressure. Only the strongest could reach the top. After all, there was only one opportunity to become a connate godfiend. There were hundreds of thousands of people who had come to try their luck. Of course, they would choose the best. However, the opportunities in Zichen's grotto heaven were not limited to the 5 elements creation pool. This time, Feng Zichen had put in a lot of effort. He took out all his treasures and placed them in Ziwei grotto heaven as their opportunity this time. Feng Zichen was even prepared to take out the star tree. In the past, it was to guard against the demon race. Now that the demon race had come knocking on their door, there was no point in hiding it anymore. It would be good to take it out to increase the strength of the human race. The connection between the primordial world and the upper-class world had yet to be established, so the number of people who could enter was limited. There were nearly 1 million people present, so it was impossible for everyone to have a chance to enter. According to Feng Zichen's calculations, the number of people who would enter the upper-class world should not exceed 1 yuan, which was 129,600 people. In other words, there were nearly 800,000 to 900,000 people who would not be selected by the upper-class world. Of course, Feng Zichen would not let these people make a wasted trip. The opportunities in Zichen's grotto heaven were prepared for them. Moreover, the dangers of the upper-class world were unknown. Those who went to the upper-class world could also benefit from this opportunity and increase their chances of survival. In the Great Calamity, every bit of strength increased would increase their chances of survival. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. During this period of time, many people had discovered the realm gates one after another and been sent to the upper-class world. These were the hopes of the human race. Although the laws of the primordial world were completely different from the laws of the upper-class world, this did not mean that the laws of the primordial world could not be used in the upper-class world. After all, the origin of the primordial world contained the Tao of the 3,000 fiend gods. The 3,000 upper-class worlds were still a part of the primordial world, so the laws were still universal. However, it was inevitable that they would be somewhat suppressed. In the end, it was not the mainstream of the world. However, Feng Zichen believed that with the powerful adaptability and potential of the path of the fiend gods, Even if it was suppressed in other worlds, it would still be able to shine brightly. Feng Zichen still had his own selfish motives for sending the human race into the 3,000 upper-class worlds. Not only were they the hope of the human race, but they were also Feng Zichen's preachers, spreading the path of the fiend gods for him. When the passage between the 3,000 upper-class worlds and the primordial world was completely opened, those saints and great divine abilities ran over excitedly to preach the path, but they were surprised to find that the path of the fiend gods had already taken root there. Their expressions must be very interesting. At that time, even if they wanted to find trouble with Feng Zichen, it would be too late. With the luck of the 3,000 upper-class worlds in his body, how powerful would Feng Zichen be? At the very least, he would be an existence comparable to a saint. Very good. Very good. At this speed, the selection should be over before the demon clan attacks. Looking at everything that happened in Zichen's grotto heaven, Feng Zichen's eyes flickered as he thought to himself. After these clansmen went to the upper-class worlds, he could be completely relieved. The human race still had a fire seed in the world, so he could fight the demon clan without any worries. After another 300 years, Feng Zichen estimated that more than 100,000 people had entered the 3,000 upper-class worlds. They would soon reach the limit that the upper-class worlds could accommodate, the number of yuan. Seeing this, Feng Zichen was completely relieved. The torch plan was considered a success. That's right, Feng Zichen named this plan the torch plan. The spirit of humanity was passed down by the torch. The torch was the symbol of the human race. These clansmen who left were the future hope of the human race. They would carry the torch and spread the glory of the human race to the 3,000 upper-class worlds. It's almost over. Retracting his gaze from the realm gate, Feng Zichen looked at the people who had not entered the upper-class worlds. They were actually not bad. However, they were born in the wrong era and had to be buried with the human race. Feng Zichen was not sure if these people could survive. The only thing he could do was to keep these people in Zichen's grotto heaven. Zichen's grotto heaven was located in the ancestral land of the human race. As long as the demon clan did not attack this place, they would be safe. However, if the demon clan was heartbroken and did not care about Nuwa at all, and attacked this place forcefully, Feng Zichen would not be able to do anything. Feng Zichen could not bear for them to die. In terms of talent, these people were not inferior to the clansmen who had entered the upper-class worlds. Unfortunately, they were unlucky. Just as Feng Zichen was lamenting the fate of everyone, above the 9 heavens, a demon clan army had already gathered. They formed an army formation and headed towards the primordial land to attack the human race. The demon clan did not send a large army this time, only 10,000 troops. They were not elites, but dispensable characters of the various clans. To be precise, this was an army formed by cannon fodder. The primordial land was ultimately the territory of the Magi. The demon clan did not dare to send out elites on a large scale and risk their lives. If they were destroyed by the Magi, wouldn't they suffer a huge loss? Therefore, the demon clan sent out this group of cannon fodder. Firstly, even if these demons were killed by the Magi, the demon clan would not feel the pinch. Secondly, that was an insult to the human race. No matter what, the demon clan was a race formed by connate life forms. The cannon fodder they sent might not be valued by the demon clan, but they were still connate life forms. What about the human race? The only postnatal race in the primordial land. In the eyes of connate life forms, postnatal life forms were a bunch of filthy things that could not be brought to the table. Destroying them was as easy as flipping one's hand. This was the reason why the demon clan sent out these demons. They really did not take the human race seriously. The cannon fodder army set off from the boundless void, crossed the sea of stars, passed through the heaven-human boundary, and arrived at the primordial land. Then they passed through the astral wind belt, the lightning fire layer, and finally arrived at the primordial land. The demon clan did not have the slightest control over the primordial land. Passing through the void was extremely dangerous for them. Therefore, if they wanted to arrive at the primordial land, they could only fly slowly. This gave the human race a chance to catch their breath. When the demon clan arrived at the primordial land, It was already hundreds of years later. At this time, Feng Zichen's torch plan had already succeeded, and the opportunities in Zichen's grotto heaven had almost been discovered. Chapter 459. Among them, Feng Xian had the greatest opportunity. With his powerful body, he had withstood the pressure of Ziwei Mountain, and was the first to reach the peak. He had entered the 5 elements fortune pool, and received the baptism of the fortune elixir to transform himself into a Khanate god fiend. However, transforming into a Khanate god fiend was not something that could be done in a day. It was a long process. Therefore, after entering the 5 elements fortune pool, and going through the initial torture, he had been in a deep slumber. This calamity of the human race had nothing to do with him. A Khanate spiritual treasure could not protect an entire race, but it was more than enough to protect one person. Sleeping in the 5 elements fortune pool, Feng Xian's luck could be said to be heaven-defying. Feng Xian did not have to worry about this calamity. One had to admit that the Feng bloodline of the human race was full of geniuses. Many experts of the human race were surnamed Feng. Speaking of which, this was because of Swerin and Feng Zichen. The 2 patriarchs of the human race, Swerin and Feng Zichen, were both surnamed Feng. As such, in consideration of the contributions of the Feng bloodline, the human race's luck favored this bloodline. This was why there were so many geniuses of the Feng bloodline. The other person, Chen Xing, was not inferior to Feng Xian in terms of luck. In fact, his luck was even better. Perhaps it was because of his name, or perhaps it was the final radiance of the human race's luck that created another person with great luck. This person wandered around Zichen's grotto heaven for several years, and was unexpectedly favored by the Khanate star tree. He obtained a star origin fruit. This was no ordinary fruit. It was formed from the Khanate star tree's essence. It was extremely rare, and might not bear even one fruit in billions of years. It could be said that since the birth of the Khanate star tree, it had only borne one star origin fruit. Consuming this fruit could cleanse one's essence and harmonize with the Tao of heaven and earth, becoming a noble Khanate god fiend. The extraordinariness of this fruit could be seen from this. It was this fruit that was easily obtained by Chen Xing. His luck was truly enviable. Now, Chen Xing was in seclusion under the Khanate star tree, working hard to cleanse his essence and transform into a Khanate god fiend. Of course, this was an extremely long process. However, with the protection of the Khanate star tree, Chen Xing managed to avoid this calamity. As for these 2 people, he was not the one with the best luck among the human race. At present, the 3 disciples of Feng Zichen were the luckiest in the human race. Feng Jie, Jiang Xiong and Jiang Hui. As the disciples of Feng Zichen, they were the 3 most brilliant figures in the future of the humankind. How could Feng Zichen let them die in this disaster? They had a brighter future ahead of them, and should not fall here. Therefore, after the realm gate was successfully refined, Feng Zichen immediately searched for the 3 of them, and planned to send them to the great wide world. However, Feng Zichen had spent 100 years searching every inch of the untainted land with his spiritual will, but he had not found any trace of the 3 of them. Feng Jie and the other 2 suddenly disappeared from the untainted land. This really gave Feng Zichen a fright. To be able to affect the present from the endless future, one could imagine how powerful the 3 of them were. Even if Daoyuo Jingxian had not become a primordial chaos expert, he would not be far away. They were the true future of the human race. They could lead the human race to glory, so nothing could happen to them. However, when Feng Zichen thought about it, the anxiety in his heart immediately disappeared. The future of the 3 of them was destined. They would definitely become top great divine masters. All the hardships they had experienced now were resources for their growth. They would not bring about any danger to their lives. In that case, what was there to worry about? After relaxing, Feng Zichen followed the auras of the 3 of them, and deduced that they were already in the great wide world. What was a great creation? This was a great creation. Without passing through the world tree, they had entered the 3,000 great wide worlds. Obviously, this was driven by the heavenly Tao, and no one else had this ability. At this time, everything was clear. Why had Feng Zichen never heard of the three of them in the future? Because they did not rise in the untainted land at all. They rose in the 3,000 great wide worlds and fought their way into the untainted land step by step. In the world without Feng Zichen, the three of them were transmitted to the great wide world for some unknown reason. It was there that they rose to power and became great divine ability users. After that, the passage between the 3,000 great wide worlds and the untainted land was completely opened. The three of them were able to return to the untainted land and began to create their own glory. However, at that time the untainted land was already broken. Immortals and mortals were completely isolated. Many legends had not been spread in the human world. It was normal that Feng Zichen had not heard of them. With the help of the heavenly Tao, Feng Zichen did not need to worry about the safety of the three of them. He just needed to wait for the three of them to bring him a huge surprise in the future. In addition to the five of them, the rest of the human race also had their own opportunities. It was just that they were not as big as them. Among them, the biggest opportunity was the fruit of the innate star tree, the innate star fruit. There were a total of 365 innate star fruits, which corresponded to Zhoshing. Although their effects were not as powerful as the star origin fruit, which could transform one into a connate divine demon, they were still very extraordinary. After eating a star fruit, one could transform into a corresponding star body, which was not inferior to a top connate life form. In this way, after another 100 years, when the last of the human race stepped into the great wide world, the number of yuan was reached. The portal closed and fell into silence. Although it was unknown when the portal would open again, it definitely would not open during this calamity. At this point, the Tinder plan was considered to be completed. This journey of opportunity had also come to an end. However, Feng Zichen did not let them leave. Instead, he used a divine skill to completely seal off Zichen's cave. Rumble. The innate star tree no longer hid and revealed itself from the void. Its body was so huge that it connected heaven and earth, supporting Zichen's cave. The crown of the tree even covered the entire sky. After millions of years of growth, the innate star tree was no longer the small sapling that Feng Zichen had first seen, but a divine tree that covered the sky. Although it had not grown to its peak state, it was not inferior to a mighty figure in the Sage-to-be realm. Boundless star power hung down from the innate star tree, turning into mysterious Tao patterns that completely covered Zichen's cave. At the same time, the mysteries of Zichen's cave had completely disappeared from the untainted land. The supreme grade innate spiritual root itself had the powerful ability to conceal the mysteries of heaven. Now the innate star tree had merged with Zichen's cave and shared its power with it. It blocked all the mysteries of heaven, so that no one could discover its existence. In this way, it would be difficult to calculate the whereabouts of Zichen's cave. The changes were not over yet. Inside Zichen's cave, the projection of Zhoshing in the sky suddenly shone brightly and operated according to an inexplicable formation. As the stars moved, a vast galaxy quietly appeared. Then rays of light began to merge, turning into a huge beam of light that penetrated the past and present. It was the cosmic light. The power of time and space surged out. Then Zichen's cave shook and disappeared from the void. The cosmic light formation of the Milky Way. This was another application of Zhoshing that Feng Zichen had comprehended. It belonged to the top innate formation of the way of time and space. The cosmic light pushed the galaxy and deduced the power of time and space, drowning Zichen's cave and completely erasing its existence in the untainted land. The moment Zichen's cave disappeared, all the information about Zichen's cave disappeared from the minds of the human clansmen outside. No, not only the human clansmen. Under the effect of the cosmic light formation of the galaxy, the entire untainted land, except for Daoyuo Jingxian, had forgotten about Zichen's cave. In this way, Zichen's cave could be protected to the greatest extent, and not be known by the demon clansmen. The connate star tree covered the secrets of heaven, and the cosmic light formation of the galaxy hid its traces. Everything about Zichen's cave was covered up by Feng Zichen. If this could still be discovered, Feng Zichen had no other way. From now on, you all will work hard in Zichen's cave to cultivate. When the time is right, you will have a chance to come out. Feng Zichen said to Zichen's cave for the last time. He turned and left without looking at the reactions of the people inside. Even a cunning rabbit had 3 burrows. How could Feng Zichen put all his eggs in one basket? If the torch plan failed, and all the clansmen who went to the upper-class world died, wouldn't the future of the human clan be over? So, he left another way out for the human clan. That was Zichen's cave. The geniuses who stayed here were not inferior to the clansmen who went to the 3,000 upper-class worlds. Their future was also limitless. Especially after receiving the opportunity bestowed by Feng Zichen, their talent had improved a little. Many of them had even taken a step forward and become gold immortals. This was also the future of the human clan. Therefore, Feng Zichen had to think of a way to protect them. Hiding Zichen's cave was the only way he could think of. Unfortunately, this method was not as secretive as the torch plan. Feng Zichen did not know if it would succeed. He could only do his best and leave it to fate. Boom. Outside the human clan's territory, the void distorted. The demon clan's army walked out of it and headed straight for the human clan. They did not have the slightest plan. They just walked over calmly. They wanted to destroy the human clan in one battle. It was simple and violent. This was the confidence of the demon clan. The confidence that had been cultivated by being invincible for a long time. Even if this demon clan army was made up of cannon fodder, they still had this confidence. In the entire primordial world, other than the shaman clan, no other clan could contend with the demon clan. Those who dared to resist them had all become the dust of history. The small human clan was no exception. As the demon clan army advanced, rays of clear light rose from their bodies. They were clear and ethereal, gradually connecting into a huge light screen. This was the demon clan's battle formation. With a deduction divine artifact like the He-Tu and the Luoshu, and a grandmaster of the Tao of deduction like Fushi, what the demon clan did not lack the most was array formations. Now the array formation formed by the demon clan army was the most commonly used array formation when the demon clan went to war. Chapter 460. The most famous array formation of the demon race was, of course, the heavenly cycle star formation. However, it was clearly a waste to use the array formation of the demon race to deal with a mere human. Furthermore, this army was made up of the cannon fodder of the demon race. Their status in the demon race was even lower. They were not qualified to come into contact with high-end Khanate arrays like Zhouxing. Therefore, the array formation used by this group of cannon fodder was a formation that the demon race often used in small-scale battles. The Heavenly Demon Array. This array formation was created by Fushi. Although it was not a Khanate array formation, its power could not be underestimated. It could be ranked in the top 10 among the postnatal array formations of the primordial world. No matter what, it was an array formation used by the demon race for battle. Its power could not be too weak. The key to the heavenly demon array was the word heaven. The demon race lived in the 9 heavens, and the heaven referred to the 9 heavens. In other words, when the heavenly demon array was activated, it could borrow the power of the 9 heavens. The clear light connected with each other, and the dermic powers of the demon race army also connected with each other. Gradually, they formed a vast sky above the demon race army. Rumble. A powerful pressure attacked, and the world changed color. The void trembled, bringing with it waves of terrifying astral winds that attacked the human territory. However, wherever the astral winds passed, it was like invisible blades cutting through the void. Everything was shattered, and there was no trace of life left. Judging from its power, it was no weaker than a casual attack by Daluo Jinxian. If it entered the human territory, it would not take long for all life to be extinguished. Clearly, the strength of the 10,000 Tai Jinxian demons was no weaker than Daluo Jinxian after being strengthened by the heavenly demon array. In fact, it was even stronger. With just one move, it showed the powerful foundation of the demon race. If the cannon fodder alone could master such an exquisite array formation, how powerful would the elites of the demon race be? Although they looked down on the human race, the demon race could become the overlords of the primordial world. They were not fools. They still understood the principle of a lion using its full strength to hunt a rabbit. Therefore, the demon race army used their strongest attack from the moment they attacked, hoping to kill in one strike. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as the astral winds were about to approach the human territory, the cities on the outskirts of the human territory suddenly began to glow with dazzling light, and boundless dragon chi began to rise. Roar, roar, roar. After the dragon chi manifested, it turned into illusory images of true dragons. They raised their heads and roared at the sky, letting out deafening dragon roars. Wherever the dragon roar passed, the void would tremble. Layers of ripples would appear, shattering the astral winds that were pressing down. However, the changes did not end there. Mysterious runes lit up one after another in the giant cities. The earth veins churned and resonated with the earth veins around them. Then they merged into one. Rumble. Under the influence of the earth vein, the light emitted from the giant city became even more dazzling. They connected together and turned into a towering great wall, protecting the human territory. Roar. A massive dragon formed entirely from dragon chi suddenly appeared and coiled up in the air above the great wall. It was exuding an awe-inspiring aura that no one dared to look directly at. This was the Great Wall Dragon Soul. Therefore, the Great Wall was also known as Dragon City. At this time, if someone were to look down on the entire human territory from the sky, they would discover that there was a winding golden line on the outskirts of the human territory, firmly protecting the human territory. This was the Dragon City of the human race, the first line of defense of the human race. The construction of the human race's cities was not without considerations. From the location to the construction, there was a complete set of requirements. Every human city had to be built on top of the dragon vein. Inside the city, there was also a formation that affected the earth veins in all directions to cultivate dragon chi. The purpose was for today. Although the human cities were called cities, they were actually war fortresses. They were waiting for the war to break out, so that they could show their power. With the human cities as the foundation, the dragon chi as the soul, and the faith of the human race as the body, this was the first line of defense that Feng Zichen built for the human race. The immortal Dragon City. The moment the Dragon City was born, it was firmly connected with the spirit of the human race. As long as the spirit of the human race was not destroyed, the immortal Dragon City would exist forever. Even if the Dragon City was destroyed, as long as the spirit of the human race was still there, it would appear at any time and continue to protect the human race. Is this the demon race? They don't look like much. On top of the Dragon City, many human experts frowned and said as they looked at the approaching demon race army. The aura of the demon race army was extraordinary, but it was far from being as powerful as they had imagined. Could there be a trap in all of this? Although it was the first time that the human tribe experts present had seen the demon tribe's army, they had seen the sorcerer tribe's army before, since the human tribe and the sorcerer tribe were on good terms. They could not bring themselves to resist the sorcerer tribe. Logically speaking, the demon race was as famous as the sorcerer tribe. Even if they were not as powerful as the sorcerer tribe, they should not be too far apart. But the demon race army in front of them. Just this? Not to mention the sorcerer tribe, they might not even be able to win against the human race. These human experts did not know that the demon race did not dare to send their elites into the eldritch world, because they were afraid of the sorcerer tribe. Therefore, they sent a group of cannon fodder. Moreover, even if the demon race elites came, they might not be able to defeat the sorcerer tribe army. In the battle between the demon race army and the sorcerer tribe, the demon race usually relied on their advantage in numbers to compete with the sorcerer tribe. In the case of the same realm and the same number of people, no race in the eldritch world could defeat the sorcerer tribe. The title of the strongest race in the eldritch world was not a boast, but a battle. On the other side, when the demon race army saw the change in the human race, they suddenly stopped and did not move forward. That Dragon City's aura looked rather extraordinary. If he were to recklessly go there, he might encounter danger to his life. Therefore, the demon race army hesitated. After all, there were only a few who were not afraid of death. No one wanted to die for no reason. They had thought that going to the eldritch world to kill the human race was a good job, and they could also enjoy the scenery of the land. But now it seemed that things were not that simple. For a moment, the demon race army panicked. Especially when they saw the figures on top of the dragon city, they panicked even more. Didn't they say that the human race was an acquired race? But those Tai-Jinxian were surrounded by connate spiritual light. Obviously, they were all connate life forms. It was seriously inconsistent with the rumors. What was even more shocking was that there were 3,000 to 4,000 figures on top of the dragon city. They were all Tai-Jinxian. With the help of the powerful dragon city, this force was enough to compete with them. And this was only the strength that the human race had revealed to the outside world. Who knew how many more experts were hidden in the human race? If these forces attacked together, although they were far from being able to compete with the demon race, it was more than enough to destroy them. Thinking of this, the demon race army panicked even more. They did not dare to attack the human race. They just stood there, not daring to move forward. And the human race suspected that the demon race was scheming, so they did not dare to act rashly. For a moment, the two sides were in a stalemate. The human race did not know that the demon race army was cannon fodder, but the demon race did not know that the human Tai-Jinxian on top of the dragon city were all the experts of the human race. Both sides were wary of each other, which was why such a strange scene had occurred. Just like that, several years passed. The human race's plan was to hold their ground and not attack. Therefore, the demon race did not attack, which was exactly what they wanted. But the demon race army could not wait any longer. They had been ordered to destroy the human race as soon as possible. If they delayed any longer, the upper echelons of the heavenly court would destroy them before the human race even attacked. If they were to attack a human, they would be too cautious and overcautious. It was a disgrace to the demon race. Compared to the life-threatening danger of attacking the human race, the demon race army was obviously more afraid of the upper echelons of the heavenly court. Therefore, they moved and attacked the human race without holding back. Fight! Blood chi rose from the demon race warriors and merged into the sky above their heads, turning into phantoms of demon gods. Boom! The pressure from the sky became even stronger. It was as if a real sky was pressing down on the immortal dragon city. At the same time, the phantoms of the demon gods in the sky moved as well. Like real demon gods, they used all kinds of mystiques and attacked the human Tai-Jinxian on top of the dragon city. Roar! Sensing the danger, the immortal dragon city shook and exploded with dazzling divine light, blocking all the mystiques that came at it. At the same time, the dragon soul roared and swooped down. It rushed into the sky formed by the heavenly demon formation, and started to fight with the phantoms of the demon gods. Kill! Just as the heavenly demon formation clashed with the immortal dragon city, the demon race army roared and charged into the dragon city, starting a life and death battle with the human Tai-Jinxian. 10,000 against 4,000. The demon race army thought they could win. In reality, it was indeed so. The human experts were not afraid of the demon race warriors at all, but 1 against 2 or 3, they were not strong enough. Moreover, the demon race warriors were well equipped. Although they were cannon fodder and could not get connate spiritual treasures, they did not lack connate spiritual treasures and connate spiritual treasures. The armor and weapons of the ordinary demon race warriors were all connate spiritual treasures, and they were the best of the best. The armor and weapons of the demon race generals were all connate spiritual treasures. This was the standard equipment of the demon race army. They would not be mistreated because of their status. The demon race who owned the celestial realm and Joshing were just that rich. They had countless connate spiritual treasures, not to mention connate spiritual treasures. The demon race had 4,000 Daoyuo Jinxian. Each of them had a connate spiritual treasure, so they had 4,000 connate spiritual treasures. Moreover, some of them had more than one connate spiritual treasure. As for connate spiritual treasures, they had countless connate spiritual treasures. After all, the boundless cosmos had given birth to too many natural treasures. These were the main materials for refining connate spiritual treasures. Thus, how could the demon race lack connate spiritual treasures? However, While the demon race was well equipped, the humans were not bad either. The Swearin lantern flickered above the heads of the human experts. It occasionally released balls of kindling fire, causing the demon race warriors to panic. The light of human Tao flickered on their bodies. That was the radiance of black robes, which blocked fatal attacks for them. Nests appeared in the air. They were as dignified as mountains, doing their best to suppress the demon race warriors' strength. At the same time, the human Tao furnace and the inescapable net appeared one after another, helping the human experts fight the demon race army. However, the difference in numbers was not so easy to close. Even with the help of the race weapon, the human experts could barely hold on. They could not defeat the demon race army. Logically speaking, the demon race's cannon fodder should not be so troublesome for the humans. However, how could a war of extermination be child's play? These cannon fodder had obviously been given secret methods by the demon race to destroy the humans. However, the demon race had underestimated the human strength. Even if the demon race army used secret methods, they could only maintain the upper hand. They could not defeat the humans. After a while, the demon race army would not even be able to maintain the upper hand. In the human Tao imperial court, Feng Zichen saw that the demon race war was going on for a long time. He suddenly ordered his clansmen to worship the immortal dragon city. No one dared to disobey the human emperor's orders. In an instant, all the humans faced the immortal dragon city and began to worship. Bits of wish flew out of the humans' bodies. They gathered into a torrent in the air, passing through layers of space and pouring into the immortal dragon city. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Like an ancient dragon awakening, the immortal dragon city suddenly exploded with terrifying power. The humans fighting on her body were shaken off their feet. What happened? Faced with this sudden change, not only were the demon race army stunned, but the human experts were also stunned. Why did everything seem fine? Why did the immortal dragon city suddenly erupt? However, although the human experts were confused, they understood that the immortal dragon city's change was probably a good thing for them. Chance. While both sides were stunned, those with quick reactions seized the opportunity and attacked their opponents. No matter what happened, killing the enemy first was the right thing to do. There were both humans and demon race experts with quick reactions. In an instant, the two sides that had stopped fighting erupted into battle again. It was an even more intense battle than before. The demon race army suddenly realized that this change was undoubtedly beneficial to the humans. If they could not kill the humans in an extremely short period of time, they would be in danger. After realizing this, the demon race warriors attacked again with a hint of desperation. Every move was to exchange a life for a life. They aimed to kill in one blow, completely ignoring their own injuries. How could it not be tragic? Unfortunately, it was all too late. Above the immortal dragon city, shadows of humans appeared one after another. They wore beast robes and held scepters in their hands. They exuded an ancient aura. No one knew where they came from. As soon as they appeared, they joined the battle between humans and demons, helping the human experts fight against the demon race. When they attacked, they were majestic and fearless. They were extraordinary. With this help, the human experts were able to beat back the demon clan's army. In a short while, hundreds of demon race warriors had been killed. The situation was reversed in an instant. These shadows of humans were none other than the dead elders of the human race. When they were alive, they had worked hard for the human race. After they died, their spirits were not destroyed. They merged into the destiny of the human race and silently protected the human race. Now the human race was praying to the immortal Great Wall, summoning them from the void to continue protecting the human race. Chapter 461. These were the foundation of the human race. They might not have been very strong when they were alive. However, with the blessing of the human race, the immortal dragon city, and the power of faith, they were able to unleash combat power that was on par with the Tai Jingxian. Therefore, with their help, there was no longer any suspense in the battle between the human race and the demon race. Before long, the great heavenly demon formation was destroyed by the immortal dragon city. After the great heavenly demon formation was destroyed, the demon race army that was closely connected to it suffered a backlash. Their auras were weak, and their combat power was greatly reduced. On the other hand, the human race experts were the opposite. Without the restraint of the great heavenly demon formation, the immortal dragon city was free to deal with the demon race army. This way, the demon race army was even less of a match for the human race experts. In just a few years, they were completely defeated by the human race experts. There's something strange about the Great Wall. It's not something we can fight against. Retreat quickly. The leader of the demon race army was not a fool. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, he would not stay here and fight to the death with the human race. With a thought, he decided to lead the army and retreat. However, the immortal dragon city had sealed off the void. The surrounding space had become a huge cage that only allowed entry and not exit. Without the immortal dragon city's permission, how could they come and go as they pleased? Just as the leader of the demon race army was about to leave, he realized that something was wrong. He could not find the way out. Looking around, all he could see was an empty battlefield. There was no way to find the path they came from. Above the immortal dragon city was a small world that was independent of the eldritch wilderness. Unless they destroyed the immortal dragon city, they would not be able to leave this place. Bam! 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 Just as the leader of the demon race army was looking for a way to escape the immortal dragon city, he heard a loud bang. Another dozen demon race warriors were killed by the human race experts. Ah! Humans, you deserve to die. Seeing this, the leader of the demon race army's eyes turned red. He grabbed the huge sword in his hand and charged toward the human race experts nearby. The demon race respected the strong. The leader of the demon race must be the strongest in this army. Correspondingly, his equipment was also the best. In just a few breaths of time, several human experts were severely injured by him and completely lost their ability to fight. Fortunately, the immortal dragon city had come to their rescue in time. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the furious demon leader. Roar! The dragon soul was shaken. It personally descended and tangled with the leader of the monster race army. At the same time, two other human experts who were half a step away from Daoyuo broke away from their enemies and charged toward the demon leader. Daoyuo Jingxian was a true high-level figure in the human race, and there were no more than 100 of them. Therefore, the Dharma treasures in their hands were all post-celestial artifacts that were not inferior to the demon leaders. The demons were rich, and each of them had a postnatal numinous treasure. Although Feng Zichen could not be compared to him, he was still a half-step Daoyuo. It was still possible for him to equip everyone with an acquired supreme treasure. After all, there weren't many such experts in the human race. It's over. It's all over. After fighting for a while, the leader of the demon race army gradually calmed down. From the corner of his eyes, he saw the demon corpses all over the ground, and his heart turned cold. He knew that he was done for. Even if he could leave this place alive, the demons would not let him go. So many of his clansmen had died. Whether or not it was his fault, as the leader he could not escape the blame. The only thing waiting for him was death. Brothers, I will open a path for you. Let's go. Remember, avenge me. Knowing that he had no chance of survival, the leader of the demon race army lost his will to die. He wanted to use his own death to open a path for the other demon warriors. Immediately, he roared and used a forbidden technique regardless of the cost. He burned his spirit to increase his strength. In an instant, the strength of the leader of the demon race army increased by more than 10 times. As a half-step Daoyuo Jingxian, his aura became even stronger. The void around him faintly formed the embryonic form of a precept domain. Precept domain. Where I stand is a precept domain. This was one of the symbols of Daoyuo Jingxian. With the help of the forbidden technique, the leader of the demon race army had not formed a true precept domain, but it was already in its embryonic form. This meant that his strength was infinitely close to that of Daoyuo Jingxian. A powerful and terrifying aura erupted from the leader of the demon race army. In an instant, it forced the dragon souls and human experts to retreat. Open for me. The leader of the demon race activated the acquired absolute treasure in his hand with all his might and blasted it into the void. He forcibly opened a spatial passage under the immortal dragon city's blockade. An acquired absolute treasure was the pinnacle of an acquired treasure. In theory, its power was comparable to an innate spiritual treasure. Now that the leader of the demon race had activated it with all his might, its power was no less than that of Daluo Jingxian. Such power! He could not destroy the immortal dragon city. But breaking the immortal dragon city's blockade was not difficult. Go! With a roar, the leader of the demon race used the last of his strength to attack the human experts. He wanted to buy time for his clansmen to escape. General! The demon race will definitely avenge you. Seeing that their general had sacrificed his life to open an escape route for them, the demons were touched. But they did not slow down and rush toward the escape route. Although they had left, their voices could be heard from afar. Fortunately, they knew that with their own strength, they would never be able to take revenge in this lifetime. So they placed their hopes on the demon race. Damn it! The human experts were restrained by the leader of the demon race, and could not stop them. They could only watch as the demon race army escaped. They cursed in anger. Ha! Curse all you want. Curse to your heart's content while you still have the chance. You won't have the chance in the future. You humans have killed so many of my demon race's soldiers. No one in this world can save you. It won't be long before the entire human race is buried with me. Amidst his laughter, the leader of the demon race army turned into ashes. His innate true spirit also returned to the embrace of heaven and earth. Burning one's divine soul was the most complete way to die. He did not even have the chance to reincarnate. He's also a hero, one of the human experts said quietly. Then there was a moment of silence. If they were defeated today, they would end up like the demon race army. Perhaps it would be even worse. After a moment of silence, the human experts present seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly became excited. They had won the war. The first thing to do was, of course, to clean up the battlefield. There were many treasures on the demon race. At the very least, they were richer than them. Not to mention the acquired spirit treasures on them. They themselves were treasures. Scales, feathers, fur, bones, blood, all of them were treasures. Whether it was alchemy, weapon refinement, or setting up arrays, they could all be used. The demon race was full of treasures. The group of people immediately began to clean up the battlefield. As for the fleeing demon race soldiers, they did not chase after them. Firstly, it was meaningless. Secondly, who knew if this was a trap? As soon as they chased after them, a group of demons rushed out and surrounded them. That would be terrible. This group of demons was unreasonably weak. It was very likely that it was a trap. They had to be careful. On the other side, the demon race army was afraid that the human experts would chase after them. They did not dare to stop at all, and fled directly to the heaven realm. At this point, the first battle between the humans and demons ended with the humans winning with an overwhelming advantage. The humans did not even use the chaos formation. It could be said that it was an overwhelming victory. After leaving behind 6,000 corpses, the demon race fled back to the heaven realm in a hurry. It could be said that they had embarrassed the demon race. This battle is over. Next, the most difficult test of the human race will come. The human Dao Imperial Court. The human Emperor Palace. Feng Zichen's expression was inexplicable. Even though the humans had defeated the demon race army, he did not show any joy. Because he knew that the demon race did not take the humans seriously at the moment. Therefore, the army that they sent out was not elite, and could not represent the strength of the demon race at all. But now, the demon race army had suffered a setback in the hands of the humans, and had even suffered heavy losses. An army of 10,000 aggressively went to the wilderness to destroy the humans. In the end, not only did they not destroy the humans, but they were also defeated by the humans. Of the 10,000 troops, only 3,000 people escaped. Feng Zichen could already imagine how angry the higher-ups of the demon race would be when they found out about this. The dignity of the demon race could not be offended. Therefore, the next time, the humans would definitely face the elites of the demon race. Perhaps Daluo Jinxian would make a move. At that time, could the humans really stop the demon race? At this time, the witch race could not give the humans much help. Di Jun was in seclusion, and the witch ancestors were not idle either. Before Di Jun went into seclusion, they were already in seclusion. When Huta's body was reincarnated, she had been baptized by the power of the great Tao. Her heaven-opening tribulation aura was completely washed away, causing her Panga bloodline to change and become incomparably pure. It was slightly better than the other witch ancestors. It was also because of this that the bloodlines of the 12 witch ancestors were no longer compatible. The trump card of the witch race, the 12 divine beings' wraith formation, could not be set up. Therefore, the witch ancestors went into seclusion. They wanted to use the blood essence left behind before Huta's reincarnation to combine with the power of the other 11 witch ancestors to create another witch ancestor in the witch Tao. They wanted to use the 12 divine beings' wraith formation. This matter concerned the rise and fall of the witch race, so the witch ancestors had to treat it seriously. If it was not a matter of survival, they would not come out of seclusion. Therefore, the witch ancestors could not help the human race. After all, how could the rise and fall of the human race be compared to the rise and fall of the witch race? In the eyes of the witch ancestors, no matter how good the relationship between the human race and the witch race was, they were still outsiders. In the entire human race, other than Feng Zichen, there was no other existence that they valued. Those who could help the human race. Only the 5 Khanate races could help. However, the 5 Khanate races combined would not be a match for the demon race. Moreover, they could not use the power of the entire race to fight the demon race to the death for the human race. The same race could not work together to defend against foreign enemies, let alone different races. Chapter 462. At most, they would send a few great overarching gold immortals to help the human race out of friendship between allies. As for the rest, perhaps there would be, but not too many. The Khanate 5 races were not as strong as before. In the Immortal Dragon City, the human experts had already cleaned up the battlefield. Everyone had gained a lot, and their faces were brimming with excitement. How could they not be excited? After obtaining the treasures of the demon race, their strength had increased by at least 10%. Don't underestimate this 10%. In the Great Calamity, every additional bit of strength meant a greater chance of success. 10% of strength was enough to bring about a lot of changes. In the human emperor's palace, Feng Zichen looked over. Perhaps he was influenced, and a smile appeared on his face. In the future, he might never see such a heartfelt smile again. After observing everyone for a while, he saw that they were seizing the time to refine their treasures and increase their strength. Feng Zichen did not disturb them. He retracted his gaze and looked at the Immortal Dragon City. There, the Immortal Dragon City was changing. Mysterious runes lit up on its body, enveloping the corpses of the demon race, and refining them one by one. As the corpses of the demon race were refined, the aura of the Immortal Dragon City also strengthened. The Immortal Dragon City had become stronger. There were 2 ways to increase the power of the Immortal Dragon City. One was to increase the strength of the human race, and the other was to refine the flesh and blood of the 10,000 races into it. Using the flesh and blood of the enemy to create the strongest defense of the human race was the true essence of the Immortal Dragon City. If the demon race sends more people to die, the power of the Immortal Dragon City will probably increase by a lot. Looking at the Immortal Dragon City that was constantly growing stronger, Feng Zichen had some extravagant hopes. Trash. A bunch of trash. You can't even win against 4,000 with 10,000. You're a disgrace to the demon race. In the heavenly court, demon god Jimeng looked at the demon race army that had escaped. One could imagine the anger in his heart. He wanted to tear them to pieces. We're guilty. The demon race below was also ashamed and did not dare to raise their heads. In the past, the demon race had always defeated the strong. Now the situation was completely reversed. The demon race was defeated by the weak. How embarrassing. It was really shameful. Guilty. Of course you are guilty. They are all dead. How can you still have the face to come back alive? Hearing this, Jimeng smiled coldly. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and inhaled. A stream of black smoke spread out and swallowed the 3,000 demons kneeling on the ground. Trash, you really deserve to die. After eating, Jimeng Yu cursed angrily. The demon race was just like that. They were the embodiment of the law of the jungle. The weak submitted to the strong. All right, now that you've vented your anger, it's time to talk business. Fei Lian took a step forward and said, Sigh. Before His Majesty went into seclusion, he ordered us to teach the humans a lesson. However, instead of teaching them a lesson, we were humiliated by the humans. If His Majesty learns of this, I wonder how he will punish us. Hey, what's going on here? Ghost Chariot sighed and said with a worried face. The expressions of the surrounding Yao gods changed when they heard this. What would Di Jun think if he couldn't even handle such a small matter? Would he think that they were trash? Thinking of Di Jun's methods of dealing with trash, the Yao gods couldn't help but shiver. They had to think of a way to make up for this matter. They had to make a decision that satisfied His Majesty. The only thing we can do now is to send out the elites of our race and destroy the humans as quickly as possible. Only then can we wash away the humiliation of our demon race. His Majesty will also be satisfied. Bai Zhe pondered for a moment, and said while waving his feather fan, as long as the humans were gone, everything that had happened before would be easy to resolve. This was the fastest way to deal with this matter. What about the witch race? If it weren't for the witch race, why would we send out that group of trash? Jimeng said with a face full of resentment. That was what he was mainly worried about. It was not difficult to destroy the humans. The difficult part was how to bypass the witch race and destroy the humans. The elites of the demon race entering the primeval world would definitely attract the attention of the experts of the witch race. Who knew if they would suddenly attack and destroy the demon race army? After all, the two races were mortal enemies. Moreover, if the cannon fodder died, so be it. No one would feel sorry for them. However, the elites were different. They were the future of the demon race. Every time one of them died, it would be extremely painful. A large-scale death was simply unbearable. If their decision caused a large-scale death of the demon race's elites, Di Jun's anger was not something they could bear. Therefore, they hesitated and did not dare to act rashly. Don't hesitate anymore. Let's join forces and send 5,000 elites into the primeval world. We'll destroy the humans as quickly as possible, and then bring them back. Even if the witch race notices something, it's probably too late. The demon gods discussed for a while before Bai Zhe made the final decision. His meaning was very clear. As long as they were fast enough, they would definitely be able to hide it from the witch race. Moreover, there was a deeper meaning to the number of 5,000. They could afford to lose these 5,000 elites. As long as they could destroy the humans, even if these 5,000 elites died, it would be worth it. Alright, let's do as Bai Zhe says. They looked at each other and thought that there was no other way. The demon gods could not help but agree. That's good. Ing Zhao, go and gather the troops. Shang Yang, go to the southern heavenly gate and keep an eye on the witch race. See if there's any movement from the great witches. As long as the great witches do not take action, this matter will be considered a success. After receiving everyone's agreement, Bai Zhe began to give orders one by one. Now that Tai Di Jun was in seclusion, the main matters of the heavenly court fell into the hands of the 10 great demon gods. It was because other than the 10 great demon gods, no one else was qualified for this task. Due to Fushi's identity, it was inconvenient for him to know about the human race. Therefore, when Di Jun was in seclusion, he deliberately pulled Fushi into seclusion with him in the name of comprehending the He-Tu and the Luo Shu. Although Kuan-Peng was called the Demon Master, the North Sea was faintly showing signs of becoming an independent entity. Di Jun was afraid. When the heavenly court was established, he only gave him a name and did not give him any power. Shiha was even more out of the question. After eliminating the quasi-saints one by one, there was no one else left who was qualified to take charge of the demon race, except for the 10 great demon gods. Originally, the 10 great demon gods should not be in charge of the demon race's affairs. Instead, they should be cultivating in seclusion in order to take one step closer to becoming quasi-saints. Unfortunately, the calamity was coming. They were in the midst of the calamity and could not calm down to cultivate. The more they cultivated in seclusion, the more frustrated they became. It was as if they would be possessed at any time. Helpless, they could only come out of seclusion in advance, just in time for this matter. Attack. Outside the southern heavenly gate, the 10 great demon gods and hundreds of demon gods activated the connate spirit treasures one after another. They quietly opened a void passage and sent 5,000 demon race elites to the primitive world. The power of hundreds of Daluo Jinxian and hundreds of connate spirit treasures was enough to destroy Daluo Jinxian in one strike. This power was used to hide their whereabouts. Under the circumstances where the Grand Witch could not take action, it was naturally successful. The mysteries of the heavens were completely concealed. The turbulence in the void did not leak out any aura, nor did any energy leak out. Everything was silent. In the periphery of the human race's territory, less than 100,000 miles away from the immortal dragon city, the void rippled like water. 5,000 burly figures were faintly discernible within. After a while, the void completely stabilized. The 5,000 burly figures also completely solidified. These 5,000 people were the 5,000 demon race elites sent by the 10 great demon gods to destroy the human race. Their military appearances were solemn. Blood chi filled the air around them. Their auras were extremely powerful and intimidating. They were many times stronger than the demon race's cannon fodder army. What was even more terrifying was their strength. The aura of the great Tao emanated from their bodies. The void was distorting and collapsing as if it was turning into a Tao world. Precept domain. This was their Tao evolving into precept domain. Each of these 5,000 demon race elites was at the level of a half-step Daluo Jinxian. They were not weaker than the demon race leader before he used the forbidden technique. They could casually produce 5,000 half-step Daluo Jinxian. This was the foundation of the demon race. If they squeezed the entire human race dry, they might not even be able to produce 1,000 half-step Daluo Jinxian, let alone 5,000. If the human race did not have Feng Zichen, these 5,000 half-step Daluo Jinxian alone would be able to destroy the human race several times over. The difference between them was so great that it made people despair. The 5,000 demon race elites suddenly arrived at the periphery of the human race's territory in the Eldritch Wilderness without attracting anyone's attention. The dignity of the demon race shall not be trampled on. The human race shall be destroyed. Everyone, follow me, kill. The leading demon general glanced in the direction of the human race. He raised the long spear in his hand and charged towards the human race. Behind him, the 5,000 demon race elites raised their weapons in unison and charged towards the human race with him. A distance of 100,000 miles was covered in the blink of an eye for them. At this moment, the human race experts were still immersed in their previous victory and did not notice the approaching danger. The attack of 5,000 half-step Daluo Jinxian would definitely blast the human race experts into smithereens if they were caught off guard. For a moment, the human race was in danger. At this critical moment, in Feng Zichen's Sea of Consciousness, the human emperor's seal, which was also the chaos bead, sensed that the human race was about to be in mortal danger and suddenly trembled violently. At the same time, Feng Zichen also felt a sense of trepidation, as if something bad was about to happen. Almost instinctively, he activated the chaos array and enveloped the immortal dragon city. Rumble. As soon as the primal chaos light screen that represented the primal chaos formation rose, a terrifying light beam shot out and struck the primal chaos light screen. That was the attack of the demon race elites. This attack combined the power of 5,000 half-step Daluo Jinxian and was transformed by the connate array. Even if the Daluo Jinxian was caught off guard, he would be severely injured. This showed how powerful it was. Crack. Crack. The sound of glass shattering was heard. Terrifying cracks appeared on the chaotic light curtain, and then it shattered with a loud bang. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.